The woman couldn't believe that she didn't miss her brother and sister. If only she could see them again, she would go to the ends of the earth. With these words, the unknown woman extended her hand and wished Ye-He happiness. As soon as it began to subside, she closed her eyes and rushed about in the darkness in search of her brother and sister. And opening her eyes, she did not quite understand where she ended up, and the maid was very surprised. The girl entered the body of a woman named Märchen Reinswein, and her memory began to belong to the main character. She didn't immediately understand who he was, but the name Reinswein reminded her of it, and she really became that woman. Marquis Heinz Reinswein, a minor character in the novel Supreme Happiness, possessed his wife's body. Heinz loved the main character of the novel, but he suffered many failures and had to give up his feelings. The main character of the novel Highest Happiness, Serena Leaf, was unjustly accused of betrayal and lost everything. Having acquired the Askea treasure, she undergoes many trials and tribulations to restore her good name. She marries. John Howarth, the novel's protagonist, becomes her lover. By the end of the story, they have children and live happily ever after. Heinz never got his hands on Serena. Well, there is a brief mention that he met his love, and that girl is none other than Merhin Taye. However, she later became Märchen Reinswein, but why she possessed her in particular is completely unclear. The servant informed her that her husband would soon arrive. The girl quarreled, claiming that her brother and sister also lived in this world. Even if they are here, they probably look different, and she is not sure if she recognizes them. After this, the lady met her husband and noticed that he looked so cold. According to Merhin's memory, they don't get along, which is perhaps why she was so tense inside without realizing it. The lady noticed children next to him, and it came to her mind that he had said that he was thinking of coming with the children. These are the children of the main character, Serena. As I expected, he still has feelings for her. Suppressing the embarrassment that arose in Merhin's soul, she opened her arms to the children and told them not to be afraid. The lady sat down and extended her hands to them and said that they should not be afraid and come to her. The lady didn't quite understand what was happening to these kids. The reason she inhabited this particular heroine's body was because of these two. As soon as she saw them, she immediately understood everything. My sister said she still had a fever, but the girl said she was fine. The guy asked Bean to take care of his sister. Bean decided to find out where he was going at such an hour. The guy said he was going to the pharmacy. Bean said she would go with him, so they told their sister to rest. She had a loving family, and she lost her parents at a young age, but raised a brother and sister. Ban asked his sister why she had tagged along with him. The girl said she hadn't tagged along with him for anything. Their sister was waiting for them, so they had to hurry. She couldn't afford the extravagance in life that others did. They finally reached the pharmacy. The main character lived only for her brother and sister. They were everything to her. Well, the car hit them. It all seemed like a dream. The woman believed that she missed her brother and sister. Ye-He was in tears, asking if she could see them, and if so, she begged. She in tears asked the woman to let her see them, because she would go to the ends of the earth for them. She will go anywhere. The woman said she wishes her happiness. And here she was, trying to catch up with those words. Even with a completely different appearance, she recognized them. They were twins here, too. The woman could not believe that it was really them, and that they could really be together. Now, she can't believe she worried about such trivial things. The baby came up to her and asked her not to cry. The main character recognized them at first sight. The little ones said their names were Reef and Joseph, and that they would help her. She thought that she would never have happiness in her life again, but this is a happy ending, because even greater happiness has come. Her name is Märchen Reinswein. The kids asked if they could just call her Märchen. The boy told Reef it was impolite, but the woman said, "Of course it's okay." The girl praised Märchen for allowing her to do so. The boy was upset, and the lady said that Joseph could call her that too. She was wondering how she could avoid accidentally calling him Ban. The mistress suggested they be friends. This time, she definitely won't let go of those little hands. They looked a lot like her brother and sister, so she invited them to go. The lady turned to Heinz and asked if he wanted to tell her something. Heinz said it was nothing special, and he was glad she didn't mind. In that case, it was best to go. Joseph loves reading books, and Reef loves candy. The guy said that's why her teeth rot every day. Reef assured him it wasn't every day and said he was making things up, but the boy disagreed. The main character is so happy to see her brother and sister, but she hears Merhin's sad thoughts. She can't love these children. She remembers how she and Eins met. That night, Eins got drunk and hugged Merchant, calling her Serena. Merchant didn't push him away. She hoped that fate would smile on her. She then became pregnant with Eins's child. But after just 5 months, she miscarried. Mirhen was heartbroken and sobbing, hugging her baby's tombstone. Eins never supported her, did not say a word about this misfortune, and spoke to her only when the Marquise and Marchioness Howard died. They were blown away by copper, and their bodies were later discovered. So he's thinking of taking their children with them. It wasn't discussed. He brought Serena's children home. Yegor didn't care about the death of his own child and wife, but he took the children of his true love into his care. It was a sad encounter. The children ran to meet her in despair and conveyed to her all her feelings of confusion. The children asked Merkin if she was sad. She told them she wasn't, and suggested they move on. She needs to pull herself together, because she's not Merchant after all. Reef told Joseph he was a fool, and the guy said she was a fool. The lady noted that they got along well, but the children did not agree with her, and the girl said that she did not like him at all. And they squabbled just like her Ban and Bin. After that, the lady decided to bring them some candy. The children were overjoyed, but the lady only allowed them 1 a day. If they behaved well, they would get 3. The boy said that he would come and behave well, and the lady praised him. Reef decided to ask Mirhen where their mom and dad were, because Eins had promised them. The boy tried to say something to the girl, but she didn't listen and said that her uncle had promised that if they went with him, their mom and dad would be there. Well, they are not here, and he promised, so the girl started crying. She couldn't understand why they weren't there. The lady told her she'd misunderstood her uncle and asked her not to cry. Joseph decided to ask her where his parents were. He assumed they had abandoned them. The boy also began to cry, and the lady came up to him and said that this was not so. It's completely impossible, because they love them so much. They just had to go very, very far away, and they asked them to look after them. They didn't abandon them. Eins came into the room when the lady had put the children to bed and asked if he could call her for a minute. The estate of the Marquis Howard passed to the children's grandfather, Mr. Raves. He agreed to take them back when they were old enough to inherit the title. She explained all this to her, still not even thinking of asking her anything. His Excellency asks them to take good care of them. The girl felt uneasy around him because of Marin's memories. So she told him not to be afraid, because she would take good care of them. Remembering how Eins treated her makes me sick. The man was grateful to her. The lady said that if that was all, then she would be leaving. She didn't want to spend another minute with him. Merchant hasn't shared a room with Eins for a long time. They only seek each other out when needed. But even so, his servants didn't look down on Merhain. But that didn't matter now. But she feels like she's being watched, and they probably think she's pathetic. She didn't know why she had entered this particular character, but she did meet her beloved brother and sister. Even though they don't recognize her, there's nothing wrong with that. They'll be happy. A maid burst into the room and shouted that something had happened to the young master and young mistress. Merchant immediately rushed to them and began calling for Reef and Joseph. The maid reported that the door was locked from the inside. They probably woke up and saw that no one was around and became worried. But it was completely unclear who had locked them, so the lady asked where the key was. The maid said they'd already run for the key and would open the door. Soon, Merchant shouted at Reef and Joseph, asking if they recognized her. The lady shouted that it was Merchant. Then the children recognized her. The lady confirmed that it was she, and that she had probably locked them in by accident. So I asked if they could try to open the door. And the children had no idea how to open them. The lady realized that they were still so small that they couldn't even open the door themselves. Joseph was tearful and asked if they could go out, and Reef was already thinking that they would never leave this room now. The lady said that of course they could, so there was no need to be afraid. You just had to wait a little. After that, Eins approached her. He opened the doors, and the twins stood before them, trembling. Reef immediately threw herself into Eins's arms, and the lady took Joseph into her arms. She told him that everything was fine. Mirhen asked her husband why he was looking at her like that, and told him to calm the girl down. When you looked at her, you saw that she was telling the boy not to be afraid, because everything was fine, and he was gradually calming down. Mirhen turned to Reef and Joseph and asked if they wanted her to sleep with them. It seemed she would have to sleep with them for a while. Her husband didn't mind and left. The children were shocked that she and Eins did not sleep in the same bed. The lady was surprised when she heard such a question. The children thought so because their mom and dad always sleep in the same bed. The lady offered them a candy each, and she would put them to bed. The next day, they all ate together, and the girl asked Eins where her mom and dad had gone. The gentleman was surprised that she was talking about them leaving, but the little girl assumed that they were so far away that they couldn't even send them a letter. Now the gentleman understood and said that he had said that they had gone on a journey far away to the other end of the continent. The little girl said that he didn't say anything because it was Merhen who told them that they had left. The lady said this so as not to tell them the truth, but he immediately figured it out and played along with her. If they went on a trip, the children don't understand why they didn't send them letters. Grandpa said they would write, but they never did. Joseph told Reef not to be capricious, but the little girl thought that they would be waiting for them here. But they were not here. They had to write to them because Grandpa said so, and she had even forgotten what Mom and Dad looked like. She doesn't even know what will happen if Mommy comes and doesn't recognize them, and what if they forget them altogether. The gentleman turned to Reef and said that their parents would never forget them. Reef immediately burst into tears. The man promised that they would write to them, so there was no need to cry. Reef was happy because she was eating a very tasty carrot. She couldn't hide the truth from them. Someday they will have to tell them about this, but it's all strange. Because her husband gave her a letter and asked her to give it to the children, since he wrote it supposedly for their parents. He tried to copy John and Serena's handwriting. They were still kids, and it wouldn't occur to them that they had done it. Well, the lady said she couldn't do that and refused him. Then Merchant doesn't even know how they'll react. Well, they were waiting for at least a letter from their parents, so she finally agreed, and the children were very happy when they saw the letter on their desk. Joseph told Merchant it was from Mom and Dad. She finally agreed with Eins. They begged the lady to read it to them quickly. The children were sure it was their mom and dad's handwriting. She was ashamed to see them so happy. That's what she thought reading the beautiful lines of the fake letter, written by Eins. She wrote there that she loved them. The lady didn't even know what would happen to them when they learned the truth in the future. The letter asked them not to quarrel. Merhen couldn't understand how she would dare look them in the eye when they found out. At the end, it was written that they would forever be in their hearts. The children were upset that this was all, and the letter was over. Joseph suggested writing them a letter too. Reef was up for it, and they happily set off to draw letters. The lady was grateful to the maid for bringing the paper for them. The maid was glad to help her mistress, so she asked her what her name was. The maid's name was Hannah. After this, the mistress thanked her again, and the children came to her and said they had already written letters for their parents. Reef wondered if Mom and Dad would like it. The lady said they certainly would, and offered to send it to them. Joseph suggested going outside to play. Reef asked Hannah to play with them. Their letters won't arrive. Eins thought these children were too similar to Serena and John. He remembered how they called him the same and smiled the same way. Of course they are similar, because they are their children. But he is not sure that there was a time in his childhood when he laughed as carefree as they do. His parents thought it was some kind of nonsense to communicate with other children, and did not understand why he did it. He'd been kept in a cold, windowless room since childhood, never allowed out. Suddenly, he was dragged out and told to stand up straight and behave. One day, the unthinkable happened. For the first time in his life, he was released, cleaned up, and dressed nicely. After that, he was introduced. The guy who saw the boy was named John, and he was very happy to see him. The boy asked him to be friends, and he accepted. That was John and Eins's first meeting. Because John came to visit today, Mom didn't even beat him. The boy thought there that it would be better if she were not there at all. And at that very moment, a friend approached him. John asked him why he was sitting there, so he offered to play. With John, he felt so many emotions for the first time. Joy and happiness. Eins wasn't at all averse to playing. The day John Govart first came to visit with her father was Eins's first happy day. But the happiness was short-lived. They were playing with a toy ball, and John accidentally injured himself. It's a toy sword that's old, and when they were fencing, it just broke. He got scared when a piece of it flew into his face, but luckily, it only scratched him. But for some reason, Eins has turned pale, and there is no expression on his face. So the guy came up to him and told him not to worry, because the shrapnel had just missed him, and he was okay. Well, the boy's mother had already beaten him, and asked him to ask the young master and the marquise. After that, she suggested they leave. John was trying to restore his father and wanted to help his friend. John noticed the boy smiled at him as if everything was fine. It was a silent goodbye. From that day on, the Rhinesvine estate closed its doors forever, and a long time passed before they saw each other again. John was in tears together and asked his friend what was wrong with him. He made his way to him and told him that they had come to save him. He shouted to his father that he had found the boy. John came specifically to save his friend, who was left in a locked room. The Marquise said that he could stay with them as a guest until he recovered. The boy had no memory of how he'd ended up there, and it didn't even occur to him to ask. After that, John came into their room and invited Ines to play. Well, the Marquis said he needed to rest. Well, they asked to stay with him because he would be bored. Then came the one who became Ines's whole world. A girl with violet eyes. Serena Leif stepped between him and his friend. The girl greeted him very kindly. Serena, the young heir of the Leif family. True subjects of the empire, John often came arm in arm with her, and together they visited Ines. Ines was very happy with them, but it was short-lived because soon Siren Leif disappeared. John shouted that it was a lie that their family could not be traitors to the crown. He was horrified and asked what had happened to Serena and simply begged his father to tell him. A sin of treason that cannot be forgiven. The Leif estate was burned, and the Count himself disappeared. His daughter Serena also disappeared with him. A couple of years later, Ines was forced to leave Marquis Howard's estate because news came that he didn't want to remember. His mother had died. It is said that she committed suicide with the help of the dragon, Eskaya's precious weapon. Ines accepted this as a fait accompli, and he was about to assume his rights as heir. When he returned, the first thing he did was establish a routine for caring for the violets. They were planted in the gardens to ensure that they would never stop blooming. Thanks to the careful care of the gardeners, the violets on the estate bloomed even in the cold. Purple dominated the garden of the Rhinesvine estate. With the arrival of autumn, a visitor came to visit. He was surprised it was so late. The butler asked her to return in the morning, but she said she wouldn't leave until she saw him. So he allowed her to come in. The woman entered in a robe and greeted him. That's when he realized it was Serena Leif. They had a nice chat. The lady informed him that she would not be able to stay long, so she asked him to host her the next time she came. Ines shouted that John was taking steps to ensure she could return, and he'll make Caesar to restore her good name. He'll wait until John prepares her path back into society. Ines was ready to protect her, even at the cost of his own life. The girl smiled at him. After that, Serena said that she had already found it. The only way to restore the good name of the Leif family. The boy couldn't believe what he'd seen. Lyoshka confirmed that it was the very same Eskaya treasure given to their family. This is the tablet of all knowledge. This book contains all the knowledge of magic in the world. The lady said she had a favor to ask of Ines. She would like to learn swordsmanship. If he didn't want to, he asked her to at least teach her how to handle the Eskaya treasure. Ines agreed to teach her. He was a skilled swordsman. Sometimes they spent time together, and also information about the treasures of Eskaya. They were friends, but during that period, Ines developed new unknown feelings for Serena. He thought that these feelings were from childhood, but unfortunately it was love. John was very happy to see Serena, and also asked Ines how he was doing. At the same time, his friendship with John was already very strong, but Ines was consumed by jealousy. He even sometimes felt the desire to destroy the one who did not want to belong to him, and the one who stole her, and one day he got very drunk. He can't even find the strength to wish happiness to his dear friends. Instead, he is jealous. He's acting like a complete scoundrel, and it would be better if he went back home far away from here. Well, he noticed the woman and thought it was Serena. The lady said that wasn't her name. Well, the gentleman rushed to hug her and called himself Serena. She tried to explain that she wasn't hers, but it was no use. Her eyes shone in the moonlight, and they were the color of violets. Ines apologized for getting emotional. If it weren't for that night, she wouldn't have become the heroine of the novel Highest Happiness. Ines realized over time that the tragedy of their lives had begun that night. A rumor spread that the Count had become pregnant, and soon Ines found out about it and immediately understood everything and could not stay away. The Count was shocked with you that His Majesty was saying that this was his child. After this, he laughed and asked the gentleman why he stood up, because he had to get to the estate as quickly as possible. In honor of such an event, he suggested having a glass of wine, he would decide, and there was no one else they would sit down and talk to. Merhan was forced to take his hand. She had to take care of the future child. That's how it all began. This meeting was followed in due course by an engagement and wedding. And before Merkyn moved to the Rhineswein estate, they dug up all the violets, and the master ordered them burned. With the arrival of Autumn Merchant, now under the name Rhineswein, moved to the estate. Seeing her, Ainz caught himself thinking, this woman also resembled a violet. But the violet quickly withered. Her child died. The maids tried to calm her. Ainz Rhineswein was at a loss. He didn't know what to do. He didn't even know what to say to his wife, who was grieving over the loss of their child. He himself asked me how I could possibly comfort him in such a situation. They quickly called a doctor. Ainz. Rhineswein acted as he had been taught as a child. He grew up alone in a dark, windowless room. Without having full communication with anyone, he did not experience much in life. John and the siren were the first to teach him about life and how to express emotions. Well, what they couldn't teach him was how a man should support a woman who has lost a child. The gentleman said he had to go to the Govarts, so he thought maybe bringing her Govart children would make her feel better. After the wedding, the Govarts turned to Ainz as the godfather of their children. That day, he saw the children for the first time, and no one knows what he talked about with the Govarts, but Ainz returned home with their children and a nanny. However, his wife was simply furious and asked why he brought these children. The little ones were very frightened and immediately burst into tears. Then Ainz understood. It wasn't Merhin who wanted to hear the baby's cries and feel the warmth. It was he who wanted it. So he tried to approach her, but the woman asked him to leave her and quickly go out of her sight and take these children away from her. Ainz was unable to console her, and he and the children left the room filled with the sound of inconsolable rows. He thought that was all he could do for his wife, and so a chasm opened between them. Time flew by unnoticed one day. His Excellency, the Marquise, sent a letter later that they did not die from a landslide. His son and daughter-in-law were found with deep wounds on their necks and chests, and it was not poetry that killed them, but someone who killed them intentionally. He was sure it was a contract killing. This whole thing had come so suddenly. The treasure of the dragon Askaea, that Serena had disappeared. They don't know whether the book was buried under the ground during a landslide or whether it was stolen. The master informed Ainz that the greatest treasure that remained after the death of John and Serena were their children. So the gentleman asked if Ainz had ever considered taking them in for fostering. The boy confirmed it. Sir, he is responsible, and it will be hard for him to protect the children too. No one in the Empire was able to attempt to seize Serena's treasure. Everyone knew that doing so would have incurred Rhineswein's wrath. Now the best thing to do in the Empire was to protect the children. This was only a request from the Count. It is still unclear who is hunting their family, so his lordship may be in danger. So the gentleman asked the children to stay with him for a while, because he would help them. He couldn't say that the children really didn't know anything. The Count said that he took care of the funeral as quickly as possible, so that his grandchildren would not suspect anything. He also asked Ainz to be careful with his words when speaking to children. John and Serena died, and the gentleman couldn't understand why they had left him. He was in great pain. The little girls came up to him. Reef asked her uncle if he was crying, but Joseph told her it was impolite. The girl also asked the man's name, and he sat down next to them and introduced himself. The little girl asked if she could just call him Ainz. The Lord, of course, allowed it. These children were so similar to his friends. He fell in love with them. They reminded him of John and Serena. The boy asked why they had come to see them in the first place. But then he remembered how his wife screamed and didn't even know what he should tell her. And he didn't know what to say to the children either, because they had no idea where their parents had disappeared to. A year later, when all seemed quiet at the Govart estate, someone seemed to have come for the children. But Ainz dealt with them. It's not safe for children here, so he has to take them home. And the Duke asked if this would be a problem for him. But the gentleman believed that it could not get any worse. He must protect the treasures that John and Serena left them. The children did not want to live with Ainz, but he promised them that they would see their parents, and then the children immediately agreed. Reef asked the gentleman what she saw, and I brother told her not to bother the gentleman. The gentleman said they were violets. They were traveling to the capital, and upon seeing the violets, Ainz suddenly realized he'd forgotten there was a woman bearing his last name. Merhen had already finished and began asking the girl if she liked her new hairstyle. Reef said that she liked it that way and asked her brother how he liked it. Joseph remarked that she looked like a fool. Well, the girl disagreed and said he was a fool. Lesha said that wasn't true at all and that Reef was very beautiful. The little girl pointed out that Joseph had said she looked like a fool. So the lady decided to ask him if his little sister was beautiful. The boy paused and didn't know what to say. After that, he said that he did not agree, and the little girl decided to hit him. The guy told her not to climb because she was heavy. The girl noted that they were the same as in her previous life. Bin also loved it when she put 2 ponytails on her hair, and Ban always made fun of her. Still, he made up with Bin in an instant. Reef asked Merhen to do her brother's hair too, because he also had long hair. The girl asked the mistress to make him one with a red bow, but the boy said that she didn't want that. Merhen told Reef that she couldn't do anything to him that he didn't want. She doesn't like, for example, when she's forced to eat carrots, and Joseph doesn't like it either. Reef understood, but bows are beautiful after all, so the mistress suggested she tie on a few more bows. Joseph said he still agreed, but he didn't want a red bow. Purple would be better. He apparently wanted it too. The boy also asked her not to rub his hair because it hurt. Joseph immediately became so cute. The boy asked Merchant if it was true. The lady remarked that it was certainly true and suited him. The boy said he wanted to show it to his mom and dad. A year had passed since their parents died. The children decided that they would show this to their mom and dad. The time has come, but the children are still patiently waiting for their beloved mom and dad. The lady asked if they wanted to write a letter to mom and dad, but the girl said that she didn't want to yet. Reef misses them terribly, but she knows they miss her too. And the boy remarked that they would wait patiently for them. At their age, she would probably have behaved much less wisely. They are still small, but already so resilient. Merhen remembers herself in her youth, remembers what she really wanted. She wanted to grow up quickly and become strong to protect her brother and sister. Suddenly, the children began to think about showing Eins. The lady remarked that he probably didn't have the time, while the girl wanted to see him. Last time, the mistress tried to bring them to him, but he was busy, and it was obvious he was irritated. The children wanted to see him, and she didn't understand how she could stop them, so she said they would go. Reef quickly called for her mistress to follow her. Merhen will have to go. There's nothing she can do. In Eins's presence, Merchant's emotions inevitably overwhelm her. To her, Eins seems callous and heartless. She, of course, does not need his courtship, but she is always not herself when he is around, because of these emotions that are alien to her. Only now it's a different story. Being with the children eases her worries. The lady was happy to go with them. Merchant noticed a knight on the road. A knight had been introduced to Merchant earlier, but she had dismissed him. Perhaps she should ask for that knight's return. But no one in the entire empire would dare attempt to take the lives of the residents of the Rhinesvine estate. The Rhinesvines tend to close themselves off from the outside world. The only reason Eins ever left his estate was to see Serena Laef. The lady asked the knight if he had a master. He confirmed this, but wanted to add something. The lady interrupted him and said that they simply wanted to say hello. The knight didn't know if the gentleman was busy. Well, the little girl had already run to the door and started knocking. The gentleman gave her permission to enter. Merhen didn't have time to stop her, and he seemed to give her permission, but she doesn't know whether she should go in. Reef was delighted because the master himself came out to them. The lady reported that the children wanted to see him. Reef asked him if she was beautiful today and said that her brother was too. Well, he looks at the lady. After that, he said that they suit them very well. Dry politeness and nothing more. Even the children felt it. They were disappointed and immediately realized that there was no sincerity in his words. Merhen sat down next to them and asked the children if the Duke had said what suited them. The gentleman himself confirmed this. He would be glad to learn to speak from the heart more emotionally, at least as emotionally as I spoke to Merhen that night. Merhen told the children that as they could see, the master thought they were cute. After that, smiles appeared on the children's faces. Merchant apologized for interrupting him, while the gentleman noted that it was nothing serious, and so the lady suggested that the children leave, but the gentleman asked her to stop. The gentleman said that her father had sent her a letter. She immediately began to remember something. When she lost her child, he said that he was not angry and did not understand why he should be angry at his daughter, who had married so well. It was funny because before he knew that the child was Rhinesvine's, He hit her in the face and threatened to throw her out of the house. He's just worried about how her husband will react to this, but he doesn't care at all. She could give birth to another. After that, she emerged from her reverie, and the Duke approached her. She thought she would get away with it this time, but Merhin's memories came flooding back. Afterwards, the children said goodbye to him. However, it was timely. She would be able to settle her differences with the Count her father once and for all. He doesn't treat her as an individual, but she has no time to waste on that. Now she has her little brothers and sister whom she must take care of. I'd like to live a little longer without conflicts and incidents, but that's almost impossible. Madame was informed that dinner was ready. Reef's tummy was just rumbling. The girl said that she was hungry, and the boy noted that all she did was eat and sleep. Reef said that adults tell her that this is why she is growing well. Merhin asked Reef what she wanted to eat. The little one wanted meat today. Joseph added that if she eats a lot of meat, she will grow in width. The lady noted that meat is healthy, so the baby can eat as much of it as she wants. The little girl was shocked, and the lady noted that she also eats vegetables well, so it was possible. The lady also asked Joseph to stop teasing his sister. The boy said he was like that in a book. Reef noticed Ainz and immediately called out to him, after which the master turned to her. She wants to give them opportunities she didn't have. Let them eat whatever they like. Reef invited her uncle to eat together, and he did not refuse. Merhin said that she was also going, but when the children wanted to see him, she was at a loss and didn't know how to behave. Ainz asked permission to take his leave, as it was time for him to go. The children said goodbye to him, and once again, they ate alone. The kids probably understand that he is busy, but for some reason, he always leaves first. Reef told Merhin that Mary had a lot of flowers growing in her garden. The lady was surprised and thought that she had become friends with one of the servants. If they don't hurry up and go for a walk, winter will come and it will be cold. The lady agreed with them. She's sweet even when she's being cranky. The girl made Merchant take too long to respond. Merhin wanted to go for a walk and play with her. Reef decided that tomorrow they would go for a walk in the garden. The gentleman noticed that she was a cutie and decided that she would no longer pretend that she did not understand what she was saying. She was glad the children enjoyed their walks here. She would like to take them on a trip outside the estates. But for some reason, Ainz did not allow it. And then the lady did not understand why she could not even go with them to the countryside, because she was ready to take the knights with her. But the Duke told her that she could not do this. He did say that she could ask him whatever she wanted, but for some reason, he doesn't keep his word. At least you can sit in the garden there. So she probably decided to ask if they could stay in the garden. She is of course interested in why he forbids it, but she doesn't really want to ask him about it. Reef asked Joseph what this flower was called. The boy said that he didn't know about it, so the girl decided to ask Merhin about this flower. The lady said she didn't know either. In fact, neither Merchant nor she were interested in flowers. The maid remarked that if my lady wished she could tell her, after all the mistress had forgotten the girl's name. Joseph was shocked that Hannah knew about it. The maid pointed out that her parents owned a flower shop in town. The lady remembered that this was the one who brought the children crayons. The maid, she said, was Cinerarias. The boy was surprised the girl noted that this flower had a beautiful name. Hannah remarked that it was very nice that the young lady liked it. She never had time to be interested in flowers, but at least her little ones will have the opportunity to experience the beauty of nature. Suddenly, the butler approached them, and the lady did not understand why he was there. The gentleman turned to my lady and informed her that Count Thine, that is her father, had arrived. He's waiting for his mistress in the living room, so Merchant asked Hannah to watch the children. Reef asked Merchant where she was going. The lady said she'd be back soon, and asked them to take Hannah for a walk in the meantime. The maid said that she would show them other flowers if they wanted. The lady inquired about her husband. He reported that His Excellency was with the Count. Merhin was shocked that for some reason he didn't call her right away. The Count arrived without warning, so His Excellency had no opportunity to refuse. Well, she didn't even ask about it, so she decided to just keep quiet in response. Then they met that very night. It was Sir Azeth. He was surprised when he saw the Duchess. The butler asked the Sir to let them in. She might not have to meet the Count, but Merhin is the mistress of this house, so she must meet him face to face. She must tell Count Tyne who she is and what she thinks of him. The gentleman was surprised when he saw Madame. She had a couple of questions for him. The Count remarked that he hadn't seen the Duchess for a long time. She must make it clear to him that he was not welcome here. Count Gavrilovskaya said that he was so worried about his daughter because she did not answer his letters. He came to disturb her peace. The lady remarked that they had indeed not seen each other for a long time, and that was all she would say to him. The count told his daughter that he missed her period. She couldn't even imagine how worried he was about her not answering his letters. The lady apologized and said that she didn't mean to make him worry. She knows he's not interested in Merchant. He simply can't contain his curiosity about Ainz bringing the Govart children into the house. She is so irritated by his gaze, it is impudent and aimless. He does not always and does not even hide his intentions. The lady asked him firmly why he had come at all. The gentleman pointed out that she was looking after the Govart children. He didn't answer her question, a clear hint. The children had lost their parents, and he was probably wondering if she was planning to adopt them. According to the plot, Marin's father was a father only in name. In reality, he was always ready to spread gossip about her, insult her, and exploit her for his own gain. Even though she is Reinsvein, he wants to behave in the old way because he will not dare to say anything against Ainzi. She shouldn't pay attention to his provocations, so she said that little children are simply adorable. Afterwards, she turned to Ainz and asked if it was true. The gentleman remarked that they were simply charming. The lady was shocked with you that he took such a long journey just to ask this question. The gentleman said that she had misunderstood him, but she had just said that they had no free guest rooms at the moment, so unfortunately, they would not be able to provide him with the proper hospitality. And she doesn't have time to see him off, so she asked Ainz to see him off. The gentleman agreed with me. He asked her to stop and asked why she was suddenly talking to him like that, because she had never been rude to him before. He tried to stop her, but the lady ignored him. It was no wonder he was so angry. He expected Merhan to look at the floor and remain silent as before. After what her father said on the day she lost her child, she had changed her attitude towards him forever. Sir was shocked when he saw Madame and tried to ask her what happened. He was worried about her, and it surprised her, but the lady said that she was fine. The knight tried to tell her something, but the lady had left, and he read that he was a fool. Suddenly, a man came up to him from behind and remarked that the whole empire knew that he was a fool. He didn't understand why he was so surprised. This man was Asher. He had strangled the knight and he couldn't speak. He said the owner had a guest, so he shouldn't make noise. He tried to be as quiet as possible. The knight cleared his throat and said that now he could speak. Azet asked him not to sneak up on him like that again, but the master understood and said he wouldn't do it again. The knight had never spoken to him before. Asher Turka is a mage of indeterminate age and unknown origin. No one knew under what circumstances he met Marquis Reinsvein, or where he came from in the Empire. Many knights were distrustful of him, especially since he called Ainz his master. However, there were also people who trusted him. He was surprised that the owner had not yet finished the conversation, but he saw that Madame had already left. He reported that the gentleman would be finished soon. For example, Sir Azet, who had often witnessed his incredible abilities. Moreover, with the help of his magical skills, Asher could protect his master. The Duke asked him if he had completed his task, and he immediately confirmed it. He also added that he seemed busy. The fifth-floor boy said that he probably needed to come later, but the gentleman said that he could go in now, and the knight would escort the count to the gate. Azet didn't understand at all how he could do this, but Asher said that he had already told him, "My lord requires constant protection." The knight informed him in his testimony that he would escort him. However, he won't be able to go far, but he will walk him to the door. The man ordered her to take him to Merhan because he had to talk to this girl. The knight did not at all understand how he dared to speak like that about their madam. Therefore, Azet reported that Madame is the mistress of this house, and she is on par with the Duke, so he asked him not to talk like that. The count asked what he would do, and whether he would take him to her. Azet said he wouldn't do it. And then he started shouting that he was Count Tayin. He was a descendant of Edia Tayin, who wielded the dragon Askaya in ancient times. It was 1,000 years ago, so the knight didn't understand what he was getting at. He drove the knights away and said he would find her himself. The knight tried to stop the count because he knew he had to do it. If he finds Madame, it will be bad, so we need to catch up with him first. The count asked Merchant if she was really going to give her estate to other people's children. The lady asked the count to be more restrained. The knight tried to stop him. Merhan hated her name, which connected her with her family, but she did not change it. The main character doesn't know how to feel about this, but she knows for sure that she no longer belongs to this family. So she decided to correct him and said that her name was Merchant Reinswein period, and it seemed that the count was lost. So she asked him to show the count. The father shouted that he remained with her tolerant even when she lost her child and became useless to him. He couldn't understand how she dared insult him like that. Suddenly, the Duke approached him and asked the Count what he was doing. The gentleman noted that Sir Azat had known the plan of the estate well for a long time, so he was interested in how the Count ended up here. The knight apologized to his lord afterward. Ainz ordered him to accompany him to the gate, and this time he didn't turn aside. Merhin's grief over her lost child washes over her again. Her sobs ring in her ears. Her white hands convulsively clutching the blanket, she gathered herself up to the children who had barely learned to walk. She felt suffocated by Merhin's memories. She had tried so hard not to think about it all, but now, like a flood breaking through a dam, these memories washed over her. She was the only one who could take a single step on unsteady legs. Perhaps she shouldn't have gone out to the Count or gone straight back to the children, although he would have found her anyway and said the same thing. It's even good that the children didn't have the chance to hear it. Reef ran toward Merhin. The maid tried to stop the young lady. The little girl said she had a gift for Merchant, so the lady asked what it was. It was a wreath of flowers, and the little girl noted that any flowers suit her. Her kids made this for her. Every time they walk in the garden, they weave a wreath for her. They said they did it for their mother. They talked a lot about their parents. Joseph prepared a bouquet for her from himself. Their parents died young, but they were so lucky that they spent at least 5 happy years with them. The lady was very grateful to the children for the gifts. She can no longer call them her little brothers and sisters. She wants to ask this woman if she really wants her to be happy. If so, then for some reason she didn't erase Merhin's memory before infusing her into this body. And for some reason, she didn't leave her brother and sister's memory since they don't remember her. Reef told Merhin she was hungry. The boy pointed out that she had eaten recently, and the mistress said she would get fat if she did. Reef said that this was not so, and Merhin asked that they not quarrel. It was still early, but she suggested they have lunch. The chef had prepared another nutritious carrot dish, especially for the children. Reef didn't like carrots and was upset. The children started up again. The lady asked the little girl not to be capricious. She tried in every way to calm them down. Ainz never showed up for dinner. Afterward, she read them a bedtime story. The children fell asleep, and the lady wished them good night. She could have blown out the candle, but suddenly the boy woke up. The lady was surprised that he wasn't sleeping. Joseph began asking her why fairy tales always have happy endings. Everyone says they lived happily ever after, so he assumed they would live happily ever after when they grew up too. Merhin looked down. When she was young, she read a bedtime story to her brother and sister. One day, when she showed them a book about a prince and princess, they asked her what happiness was. The lady does not remember what she answered them then, because for her happiness is a very distant concept. And for Merhin too, they have a lot in common in this. But why is it so unclear? She just wanted a life where at least there was no sadness and grief. And suddenly she closed her eyes and saw her brother and sister. They said they had saved money from their scholarship and bought her a gift, after which they asked her how she liked it. She was 20 years old, and it would have been inappropriate for her to carry such a childish purse. But it was the first gift from them. She wore it like the most precious gift until it fell into disrepair. They assumed her sister didn't like it. The guy said he already knew he should have taken another one. She was afraid this introduction would end, so she didn't want to say a word. Ban asked her little sister not to cry, because she would not upset her anymore. Bean said she was lying again, but the girl asked him to keep quiet. Ban told her sister that she would do everything to make her happy, and she would always try to make her happy. Bin told her to first learn to at least not cause trouble. Then he said he would bring her happiness too, and even more than his sister. The girl was very grateful to them, and as soon as she spoke, the dream disappeared. Devastated, she fell to her knees, and in that lonely, empty place, she just sat there on her knees. She heard someone talking to her, but she didn't understand who it was. After which she saw in front of her the real Merhin, who was also kneeling in the garden. It's true, this is the real Merhin. In that case, it must mean someone was calling her to me. If a man said that he could turn back time if she wanted. The main character was curious about what they were saying. The man said he knew how to do it. If this is how she can be happy, then he is ready to fulfill it. The girl decided to run up and asked him what he was going to do. Well, after that, a strong wind followed, and the girl woke up from this horror. She dreamed of a fragment of her memory. So Merhen didn't die at the hands of Ainz. She died on a cold, snowy night. These were the last minutes of her life. She entered the body of Merhen, who spent the last days of her life in complete solitude. The dream was restless, but the street was so calm and quiet, perhaps because it was early morning, and yet she doesn't want to disturb this silence, so she decided to look at the flowers and calm down. She had a lot of things to fix, and he gave her time, so he believed she had done it. This man was the same one she saw in her dream, but she didn't understand why he was here. He said that she also made a conscious choice, because she also wanted this kind of happiness. He doesn't know she's not Merhen. She's afraid of his upbringing, as if he might drive her out of this body. The body doesn't matter, but her brother and sister now live in this world, in a different form. She cannot leave her brother and sister, whom she has just found. He said it was just a question, so there was no need to be afraid of it. He asks if she's happy, but she can say that she is happy with everything. However, she cannot say with certainty that she is happy. The girl feels differently at different times, so she cannot say that she is happy. Merchant said she didn't know. He hoped that the next time he asked, she would have a more definitive answer. He put a bracelet on her, and the lady was very surprised, after which she asked what it was and why he gave it to her. Well, the man disappeared, and she got no answers either. The girl doesn't know who he is and doesn't understand anything. Then she met the Duke. He was surprised when he saw her. After this, the gentleman remarked that he was surprised that she got up so early. "Madam, what about him?" He also got up very early. The gentleman said he just had some business to do. Merhen asked what he was doing so early in the morning. He wanted to tell her something else, but suddenly someone called him. It was the knight who said that Commander Arta was looking for him and said it was urgent. Merhen felt very good, because she could be with the children, and it was such a joy. The Duke asked what was wrong with him, but the knight said that she would like to question him. But the gentleman was against it and said that he wanted to do it himself. Ainz said he'd be back late today. He must be very busy. But the lady told them not to worry because he'd be back soon. Every time he was late for dinner, or couldn't come at all, the children were upset. Apparently, the Marquise and Marchioness of Govart always ate with the children, and they were used to it. After she'd managed to console them, they sat down at the table every time she noticed them glancing at Ainz's empty chair. She distracted them, offering their favorite food, and even after dessert, Ainz still hadn't shown up. The man asked Rheinswein if he thought he could protect his children. The Duke knew he was coming for them, and he wondered who the idiot was who had the idea to turn against him. He'll kill him anyway, even if he doesn't say anything, so he'd rather die than help him. The gentleman grabbed his face. The knight tried to stop him. The Duke said that he would kill him himself in any way he chose, so he shouldn't try to die himself, and should tell who ordered the death of Serena and John. And as for the children, he wondered who needed the treasure. After that, the man laughed. He started saying something about his wife and children, after which the Duke immediately killed him, unable to bear it. He tried to say something, but the master ordered him to get rid of the body. The gentleman understood that if they were hunting her too, the children were definitely in danger, and he wouldn't let it go. The children were delighted because a letter arrived from Mom and Dad. They couldn't understand why they hadn't written to them in so long, and they were probably on their way. Reef asked Merhen to read it to them. She wondered how long this would go on and whether it was right to keep them in the dark any longer. If the truth came out, it would only hurt them more. The little girl suggested writing a response, perhaps drawing a picture, but for the sake of their peace and happiness, this temporary measure could be extended. Even though their peace could be disturbed at any moment, Reef drew a beautiful picture of her mother, father herself, her husband and children. She depicted her and Ainz as distant from each other, so even children could see what their relationship with him was like. The maid announced that food was served, and the mistress called the children to come with her. Reef was upset that Ainz wouldn't be coming this time either. He was probably busy, so Merchant suggested starting without him. It seemed their parents really were together at every meal, and they were sad. So the lady suggested that they go and invite Ainz for dessert after the meal. They were surprised that they could do this, but the lady said that first they needed to eat. She went to him because the children miss him, but it is unknown whether he will be glad to see them. Reef was very happy when she saw the Duke. He was surprised when he saw Milady with the children. The little girl ran up to him and said she missed him. The lady noticed that his gaze was strange. She said they came because they missed him. He probably had things to do. Well, she asked him if he minded if they waited in his office. The gentleman didn't mind. So Merhin went with them. When he was near her, the lady said that they missed him very much, so she asks him not to be late. The children were surprised when they realized he wasn't going with them. Merhin said they needed to wait and he would come. He didn't even know if he had the right to be with them. The Duke believed that he should not approach them, because if he got too close, they would smell him. They recognize his foul odor. When he sat alone, Asher approached him without asking what was troubling his master. Ainz didn't understand what he was talking about and pointed out that he was mistaken. Asher couldn't understand why he wasn't with his wife and children. The Duke thought he was simply spying on him and asked about it. He asked if Asher could remove the smell with magic. This surprised the mage, after which the gentleman said to tell him to forget about it, and having apologized, turned away. The man did not understand where his master had gone, while the children were eagerly awaiting Ainz's return. They wanted to play with him, but they thought he would come if they waited a little longer. It suddenly occurred to Merhin that perhaps these children saw him and Ainz as their parents. She copes alone, but she would like her husband to participate too. But she can't hide it from them forever. After which, a gentleman came into the room and was very surprised when he saw them. Reef was very happy. The master asked how long they had been waiting for him. The lady said that it would not be very long. But in the meantime, the girl was asking to be held in the gentleman's arms. The lady smelled a very exquisite perfume and noticed that his hair was also wet. She assumed he'd taken a bath and changed his clothes. Reef remarked that Ainz smelled very good. The gentleman was glad and noted that it was probably not easy for her to look after the children alone, so he thought that if someone else was needed. Merchant said that actually, no, and she thought he was trying to say something by it. The gentleman remarked that he hadn't noticed her wearing such a bracelet before Merchant remembered that it was that stranger who had given it to her. She completely understood why he began to notice her. He would have continued to behave as if she didn't exist. The lady remarked that she didn't think it was his business. The gentleman couldn't help but agree with hers. The kids are worried. Well, she will try her best to hide her feelings for Ainz. The maid informed the little lady that she had provided her with another cake, and the little girl was very happy. Reef had already offered food and said that she wanted strawberry, but the boy wanted to sit with Merhin. Reef turned to her uncle and asked if he knew what Joseph had said. The Duke inquired about it. The lady remarked that he was very responsive and attentive today. She doesn't understand if it's because of his sense of duty or if he's truly sincere. Reef asked Merhin if she had heard that Joseph wanted them to have tea together. The little girl said that it was so wonderful and asked her brother what dress she should wear to their tea party. Merhin asked Ainz what he thought about it. She thought he was probably busy. The gentleman said that it was not a problem, and he would set aside special time for them and warn them in advance. The lady was very happy because this time the children wouldn't be upset. She hadn't noticed so many flowers in the garden. The children were delighted to see Ainz. The lady was also surprised that he had arrived so early. Reef greeted the gentleman and was flattered that they would have tea with him. Ainz was very grateful to her for inviting him. He hadn't been with them for so long, so he suggested we have a good time. We noticed his face change. Despite Reef, he was probably thinking about his beloved. She doesn't even know if children are a pleasant reminder of the past for him. Well, for her, just being with them is enough to make her happy, because she's not the real Merhin. She saw him like this, and she immediately felt calm. The knight approached them and apologized. The lady remarked that it seemed Rian had something to say to him, so he could go. Ainz said he was very sorry, but he would step aside. John apologized to the children. Joseph said it was nothing serious, but the little girl was very upset. The lady noticed that the knight smelled of blood. The children assumed that Ainz simply hated them. Merkin said he simply had some business to attend to, and that they would meet for tea another time. But they thought that maybe there would be another time too. Merhin said that in that case, she would punish him, for example, by forbidding him from eating candy for a whole week. The children laughed, and the boy noted that if his sister cried, and then immediately laughed like that hair would grow on her butt. The lady's maid came up and said that the Duke had asked her to give him a letter. This letter bore the seal of the House of Govart. She couldn't understand why he had chosen to do this now. After which, the maid immediately turned away and ran away, and the mistress did not understand why she was in such a hurry. Joseph was delighted to see that the letter was from his mother and father. The lady suggested they go inside, and then she would read it to them. But the children said that they wanted her to read it right now. Merchant didn't mind and accepted the count. And there she read that the appeal was addressed to Mom and Dad, and realized it wasn't Ines who wrote it. The Duke asked what was going on, because there were a lot of corpses on the field. The knight reported that these people were trying to penetrate the magical barrier, and when they succeeded, they exploded. The guards caught the rest. Ines asked the mage what they were doing after passing through the barrier. Asher noted that the master was worried about his wife and children, and that this was not worth doing because he was constantly monitoring the entire territory and estate through magic. Asher asked for forgiveness and believed that he had disturbed him at the most inopportune time. Ines asked the knight to send soldiers across the territory in case there were any survivors left, after which a servant ran up to the Duke and reported that they were in trouble because the young lady the master and his wife had disappeared. They waited for him here, but after a short time, all three disappeared. They were sure someone had kidnapped them, and the master was angry because they had been stolen from his own home. He asked the knight to tell him if there was anyone among the servants who aroused his suspicions. He reported that there was one Isabel Robin. His descent had not been stopped, and he worked as a groom. Ines said it didn't matter. The first thing he had to do was find out where the children had gone. Robin must be arrested immediately if he has not yet escaped, and if the search for the children yields no results, the first thing he must do is interrogate him. The maids were supposed to go in search of the children. The knight decided to ask his master where he was going. They are not in the bedroom either, so it is unclear where they disappeared to. He noticed the box on the table and thought that perhaps it had something to do with their disappearance. He opened one of the letters and saw that it contained a drawing of a little girl. Meanwhile, a knight ran up to him. The gentleman thought he'd found something. The boy reported that something suspicious had been found in the stable boy's room. It looks like an ordinary piece of paper, but the gentleman understood what it was, after which he immediately grabbed his sword and cut himself to draw blood onto this leaf. He was shocked with you that there was a damn magic circle on that paper. The gentleman asked Azet Swati that he would go for the children, after which the gentleman disappeared. Azet brought him a piece of his son's paper with the outline of a teleportation circle. It is activated only by blood. If Merhengo disappears, it means only one thing. Someone activated the same circle with blood and gave it to them, but where they are now is completely unclear. Suddenly, the gentleman noticed that he felt blood and could not believe what he saw in front of him. His wife and children were lying in front of him, period. He couldn't believe it, but when he got closer, he realized it wasn't them. It was the same suspicious groom. He even sacrificed a child, but what that was, and who was taking revenge on him, is still unclear. Merhen! He always pretended not to notice her. Then he noticed the petals. He saw what was bringing them from the entrance to the portal, and if this was his punishment, then he hopes that he will be able to atone for his guilt before her. They were cold, and the boy tried to wake his mistress. The little girl also wanted to help. When Merhen woke up, she didn't understand anything and saw that her leg was injured and her dress was covered in blood. She hugged the children and told them not to be afraid because she would be fine. It was early and not deep. Someone approached her and asked if Lady Rhinesveen had woken up because she thought that they had decided to leave them. This woman invited her to meet. The lady thought it was a dream, but it wasn't. The sensation was too realistic, especially the smell of blood. The girl couldn't understand why her mistress was looking at her like that. She noted that she had no disagreements with the lady. Whether she dies or survives doesn't matter to her, because she needs these crumbs. The children immediately clung to Merkin and begged her not to give them to her. Merkin said that whoever she was, these children would not go with her. These are her brother and sister, and she protected them again after that, they say. So she told her to get out. The woman did not understand what it was, and could not believe that she really loved them. If Mrs. Marin can leave, she'll let her go. If not, she's finished. And the children were carried away by the wind, and the lady was very angry, and did not want this woman to even boldly take them away from her. She was supposed to save them, but she found herself in darkness, after which she opened her eyes. She heard that the girl was crying for her, and saying that her brother was lost. Reef had no idea what to do now. If something irreparable had happened to the boy, then that was the end. The lady asked the baby not to cry, because she would find her brother. She knows that Merhan can do anything. They were in some kind of endless labyrinth and kept calling for Joseph. They desperately wanted him to respond as soon as possible, and suddenly the baby was finally found. The lady and the baby called him to them, and the boy was also very happy. He was scared, but the lady told him that everything was fine, so there was no need to be afraid. Merkin wouldn't protect the double digits at any cost. She noticed that an exit had opened. It might be a trap, but they had no choice but to go there. So she asked them to stay close to her. She was wondering how long they had been walking, holding hands children well, but they couldn't stop. She told them not to be sad, because in a little while they would be out of here. They had to protect these children. Suddenly, the lady heard someone calling her. It was the woman who had told her to give up hope. It seemed she had won. Merchin told the children to run away immediately, but the little girl didn't want to do it. The lady said she would catch up with them soon. The woman was shocked that she was willing to sacrifice herself for these children. This woman doesn't understand her at all, because why is she doing this if these are other people's children to her? The woman didn't want to show cruelty in front of the children, but it seems she was forced to and will have to ask the kids. The woman asked the baby and toddler if they missed their mom and dad. More precisely about Serena and John Joseph, told his little sister not to listen to her. The woman said that if they wanted to see them, they should go with her. Reef said that she was lying, because if she hurt Merhan, then she was bad. The boy said that she was a liar, and that their mom and dad weren't friends with such evil aunts. They said it was impossible, after which the woman laughed and said it was right. First of all, they are dead, so there is no way they can be friends with her while being dead. The woman once again told the children to go with her, because she was as kind as their Merhan. Merhan somehow stood up and grabbed the woman by the hands and told her to stand still and shouted to the children to run away from here. The woman remarked that it was so touching, and she had forgotten something important. She lost the sport with her, so she will take what is due to her. Merhan understood that she didn't need to be afraid, because the most important thing was the children, and they would be fine even if she couldn't survive. That's enough for her Yibing, and Yibing will always be in her heart. Suddenly, the lady began to hear someone calling her, and when she opened her eyes, she saw the Duke in front of her. Merhan didn't quite understand how he got there. The children stood near them and cried. They asked Merhan if she could hear them. The lady stood up and they rushed into her arms, thinking she had died. The woman said that this damned Rhinesvine had succeeded here too. She didn't understand how he even dared to do that to her face. The gentleman put his jacket on the lady and asked her to stay there for a minute, because he wanted to finish with her. The woman told His Excellency that she did not know that he loved these children so much. Well, it's selfless, because he also wants to get the treasure of Askea from them. The Duke said the witch wouldn't understand. The woman then told him to give her the treasure in that case. The witch's magic was dispelled by the master's sword. She became very angry, after which he killed her. This woman promised the Rhinesvanes that she would pursue, so they should not doubt it. Merhan only has questions, but she wants to say so much that she didn't understand how he got here, and was very grateful that he saved them. Well, for some reason, he's looking at her again, like he did that night when he mistook her for Serena. She really wants him to explain why. The gentleman approached them and asked his wife if she could stand up. The lady said she could. Well, she was in a lot of pain, and she was worse injured than she first appeared. The gentleman wanted to help her, because she was having a hard time. Then the lady offered him her hand, but Ines took her in his arms and asked her not to take this to heart. She thought he would just help her walk, but he did so. She is very grateful to him. The Duke told the children to follow him and not fall behind his face. It was so close. The lady asked if his daughter was disgusted, since they had never been so close to each other. He is so warm she feels safe next to him. Merhan woke up and was surprised. Then she saw a boy standing next to her. She was shocked that he sat and waited for her to wake up. Joseph was afraid that she wouldn't wake up and was very worried about her. The lady said that their parents were really dead, and they just didn't want to tell them. Joseph said he already knew. The lady decided to ask when he found out about it. The guy noticed that the one who writes the letters, I'm not like mom and dad, and they never talk to them like that. And it is really strange. He believed that they wrote it and asked them not to do it anymore, because he didn't want them to hate them. Merhan asked the boy why they hated him. She loved him, so she did as he asked. The boy asked if it was true that his mom and dad were not there, and asked if she was sure about it. The lady asked him for forgiveness for this. His mom and dad are already in heaven. Ains entered the room and said that his lady needed to rest longer. The lady noticed that the boy knew everything, and no matter how hard they tried in reality, it was impossible to hide it from them. After that night, when she told Joseph everything, Merchant became seriously ill, and she doesn't know how much time passed. The lady didn't catch who was there. He was saying something, but she couldn't hear it. Merhin said that she was cold. The maid noticed that the master was there and was very surprised. She apologized and said that she needed to change the towel, but the gentleman suggested that he do it himself. Gavrilov's maid says he doesn't have to do this, but she's his wife, and he wants to look after her himself. The maid was still trying to say something, but the master told her to leave it and go away. Through his own fault, he almost lost his wife and children. She must have been so scared. That's why he really wanted her to always have peaceful and restful sleep. That night, she had a very pleasant dream. They were walking with the children through a flower meadow, and they saw him. Merhin is much better today. The mage was glad that the horror lady had woken up. The knight had said he couldn't come here. The lady was glad to see the knight, and he greeted her, and also asked how the lady was feeling. Mom said that everything was fine, and after that she was greeted by Asher Turka. He is a magician and was treating her. He asked her to tell him why she had come out to the count when he arrived. She saw him then next to her husband, so she is grateful to him for the treatment. The gentleman said that he could be called by his first name. After all, she also calls her husband by his first name. He calls him Eins, not Duke. I wonder what's wrong with this man because he doesn't think about decency at all. After which, the Duke entered the room and addressed the magician. He had ordered him to guard the peace, so he didn't understand who had given him permission to enter. The knight immediately asked for forgiveness. The magician told the master not to scold them. They will leave them alone to die. And he also wished them pleasant conversation. Now they are. So the lady was a little embarrassed. She should thank him for saving her. Merhin was grateful to him for saving them. But the gentleman said that he wanted to talk to her about the children. The lady said he could speak. The thing is, this isn't the first attempt on their lives. The lady was very surprised and asked again. There had been an attempt on their lives even before he took them in. That's why he brought them the Iskaya treasure. The tablet of all knowledge, which Serena had managed to obtain, disappeared after her death. The attackers are convinced that one of the children has this treasure. The Iskay treasure once belonged to the Marquis of Ravez. It's logical to assume he'll pass it on to his grandchildren. Well, that can't be true. So she asked if it was true that they died during the landing. The lady asked her husband not to remain silent, after which the gentleman said that this was indeed true. Merhin didn't understand why he was only now telling her about the attempt on the children. The Duke was simply afraid that she would misunderstand him, and he wanted to talk to me about it. Merhin shouted at him that she was his wife, and did not understand how he could not tell her about something so important. Merhin wouldn't have been as worried about it as she was. She simply accepted the deaths of John and Serena as a given, and didn't ask her husband about anything. But she's not Merchant Reef and Joseph. She can't live without them now. She thought that she and her husband were getting closer, but she suddenly realized that they were only moving further apart. The gentleman turned to Milady. She wanted him to leave. Eins apologized. Merkin misses her little ones. Meanwhile, the children waited for a moment when no one was around. They needed to get to Merhin quickly before Hannah returned. The little boy suggested eating cookies with Merchant. The girl didn't mind. She wanted to show her her drawing. I made something for her that she liked, and asked my brother what he thought. Madame is very ill. Joseph heard about this and assumed it was about merchants. Reef asked her brother what was wrong. The maids were worried that someone might overhear. Well, it was that time of the day, and the servants knew everything anyway. The Marquis and Marchioness of Govart were killed, and it is said that their master brought the children because he feared for their lives. But still, Madame found herself in such a state, and it was not even her children, but she who suffered so much because of them. The maids were shocked with you that there might be more attempts on your life. Madame was lucky that my lord saved her this time, but next time everything might be different. So as long as they're here, the attempts to kill them won't stop. They don't like it. The lord's knights are strong but still scary. Joseph dragged his little sister along with him, but she asked him if attempting to kill was something bad. He confirmed this, and so the little girl suggested he go to his grandfather's. Joseph said it was impossible, because then he too would be in danger. But if they stay here, Merhin will be ill. They say it's because of them that she was hurt. The children had no idea where to go now, so they started crying. Joseph turned to his little sister and suggested that they leave here not to their grandfather, but to some other place. The little girl asked if they would go away together, and the boy said that they would go to a place where only mommy and daddy would look down on them from the sky. Merhin, I will have to suffer because of them, and Ainz will have to save them. They weren't sure if they would succeed, but the boy was more serious and said that they would succeed. Reef will miss Merhin terribly. Well, if she's happy, she's ready to go. If she felt better without them, then they would leave. But the lady cried behind them in her room. Hannah told the lady that it was cold here, and she might catch a cold, so she needed to put something on. She was so pleased to listen to the rain, and suddenly the kids came to her and said that, here they are. It was raining in the garden, and the girl wanted to go for a walk. Merhin said that when it stopped, they would definitely look at the flowers in the garden. Joseph drew a picture especially for her. This time he didn't draw her parents. The lady remarked that she looked very beautiful, and that she would hang it on the wall. Reef was still upset that it was raining outside, so the mistress asked her if she wanted some candy. The little girl happily agreed. Merchant was glad she loved candy so much. The boy said that he wished it would keep raining. The butler informed Milady that his circumstances were seeking her. The lady was at a loss to understand what he wanted. Therefore, she asked the maid to look after the children, and she herself went to the master. Ainz told her to come in. He called her the master, noticed that she had recovered. The lady agreed with him and asked if that was why he had called her. If it were only for this, then she would leave. Suddenly, Hannah burst into the room, calling for her mistress, after which the maid asked that Madame not be offended, because she had not yet recovered. The knight had already found them, and the lady rushed into their arms, asking what had happened. She asked Sir Arito what was going on. The knight said the children were trying to leave the estate unnoticed. The lady decided to ask the children if what the sir was saying was true. She screamed and asked if it was true. Joseph said they were just a nuisance here. Merchant asked him what he was saying and who they were bothering. She won't let them go anywhere, but just so they can explain why they were trying to leave. Reef said that everyone around her was just pretending not to know anything, and because of them, Merhin suffered. That's why the children believed they had to disappear. The lady tried to explain to them that this wasn't true and that it was all a lie. She herself began to cry. The gentleman noticed that they were trying to leave the estate through the wing that belonged to his mother. He didn't understand how they couldn't get past the guard and thought it was his mistake. That wing was unguarded, but now he ordered that guards be posted there too, so that nothing like that would happen again. The lady said that she thinks that there are people among the servants who speak ill of their children. The master promised to find these people and throw them into prison so that they would never be able to wag their tongues again. Merhin was surprised by this answer, and the master believed that this was exactly what she wanted. But if so, then he could fire all the servants. The woman tried to explain to him that she didn't need this at all, and that she didn't want their children to be treated as a source of danger because of what happened the day before yesterday. Merhin promised to take care of them, and he could go. He was busy when they almost ran away, so he could go and finish his business. The lady will be with them. Ainz decided not to object and said goodbye. Asher was glad that the gentleman had come, because Sir Ring had been looking for him. Asher was just in time, because the master had a favor to ask of him. He was supposed to place a magical barrier over the wing of the estate that belonged to his mother. He was surprised because the master had told him not to touch it. This order has been cancelled. Here's a new one. Asher was a little upset, as he'd only just finished his business. Still duty is duty, so he asked the master not to frighten him with that expression. Ainz was surprised that her face would frighten her. It's not scary in itself, but the devastation in it is scary, as if he has no choice. And he is having a hard time forcing himself to live on, and now a struggle for life has appeared on his face. No one knows the reasons except himself. Still, he decided to leave and tell Sir Rian that the master was here. Reef and Joseph called Merchant because they wanted to show her that a flower was growing there. The lady came over and noticed that it was indeed growing there. The little girl remarked that it was cold now, and that it might fall off. She wondered what would happen if he died. So the lady suggested digging him up and planting him in a pot. It would overwinter on the estate and when spring came, they would return him here again. Reef wasn't sure he would live until spring, so the lady said that if she was so worried about it, they could ask Asher to cast a spell on him. The boy tried to explain to her that a flower can survive without magic if it is well looked after. The children were delighted when they saw that it had begun to snow. They called the knight to play with them. The man told the children to be careful, because it was easy to slip here. They ran around in the cold and ended up catching a cold. They said they didn't want to drink it. Well, the lady said they should have a drink, and then they'd get better faster. She wants to have fun and play in the snow, build a snowman. Joseph has already drunk it all. If she drinks it all, she will get a candy. Reef drank it anyway, and the lady immediately gave her a candy and also suggested that they go to bed early today. Well, the little one wanted her to play with them some more. They really didn't want to think about having to drink that nasty medicine again tomorrow. Reef asked Merhan to sing her a lullaby. The lady didn't mind. The mixture has been so quiet lately, there are so few servants, so she decided to go see her husband. His office was even more cluttered with papers than before. She said that if he was busy, she could come by another time. But the gentleman made a place for her and told her to sit down. He was planning to find her himself. Merhan was surprised that he wanted to meet her. The lady inquired why Eins would like to combine the names Reef and Joseph into the Reinswein family tree. He means he wants to adopt them. She doesn't want the children's names to be treated as a source of danger because of what happened the day before yesterday. The lady thought that he decided to do this because of what she said. However, this is probably why the number of servants decreased significantly. He fired everyone he suspected of spreading bad gossip among them. So he listened to her. Eins is the children's godparents. Their parents are no longer alive, and they must take care of them. There will be a backlash. Their grandfather, the Marquis of Revez, probably won't object to it. And if he can convince him that upon reaching adulthood, the children will be able to take back their family name and estate, he is also prepared for the possibility that the children themselves will not want it. Merhan yesterday that it was excellent and was very grateful to him for it. The gentleman asked her if she thought the children would refuse it. The lady believed they had no reason to refuse because they loved them. The lady noted that they were their children. The Lord asked his lady what she wanted to tell him. Merhan invites him to attend the memorial service for Serena Lejeff. The anniversary of her and John's deaths is coming soon. It is dangerous to take children with you. At first, the lady thought that she would go alone, but after what he said, she thinks that they should go together. Eins was surprised that she wanted to go to the capital alone, and the lady confirmed it. He didn't understand how she could have come up with such a thing, and why she was even planning to do it. The lady did not understand why he was reacting this way, and said that she wanted to find out who was stalking the children. Then the witch said she would haunt them. Someone wanted to harm the children through her, and they would definitely try to get to her. Merhan thought this was the best way to catch them. After which the man asked how she planned to protect herself, whether she knew how to wield a sword, and whether she'd ever killed. Eins was furious that she was going to go there alone without protection. She was shocked that he was angry. Afterwards, he calmed down, apologized, and suggested they forget about it. The woman did not understand why he was so angry, and said that at first she really wanted to go alone, but now she was suggesting that they go together and asked him to think about it carefully. It would be good to meet Marquis Revez there and raise the issue of adoption, and with him they will be very safe. The gentleman suggested that he could ask Asher to go, but the lady was against it and said that she would only go with him. The gentleman thought for a moment and understood her. The lady indicated that he agreed. She also apologized for taking up so much of his time and said goodbye until tomorrow. He had never seen her like this, so he was very embarrassed when she came out. Asher burst into the master's room. The knight asked him to enter through the door, but the man had urgent business and was in a hurry. The magician asked if his master was okay. The knight told him not to behave so rudely. Asher said she'd have to be patient because the master himself was going after Rajan. The master wasn't allowed to leave the mansion, and he said there were monsters there. Eins noted that they would unite and leave no stone unturned in this place. Now they had a leader, so the situation had become more dangerous, and he remembered that he had told him about this. The man was shocked that he was leaving the mansion anyway, and did not understand how he was going to protect his wife and children. The master said it would be exactly the same as before. The magician added that he'd probably forgotten what had been happening since he'd brought the young master and mistress here. Someone was making attempts on their life every day. It was thanks to him that he was able to safely transfer the children here. Asher didn't even know what to say. The magician believed that he was simply lucky then, that someone had simply spoken well in front of his bird. The bird said that if she cries to him for this, then he must do everything as it should be. He was shocked with you that the gentleman hadn't even heard the news. That girl keeps bringing up those puppies as if they were her own children. The gentleman recognized the Count's voice. Even if he wasn't behind the attack on her wife and children, he would still have to be dealt with, since he wished harm on the little ones. But after all this is Count Thine, and he won't be able to hold him accountable just like that. By the puppies, he meant the young mistress and master, and the girl was his wife. The gentleman wanted it to stop because he was ready to discuss it later. Asher was shocked. He didn't understand how this would happen later, because it wasn't a fact that this idiot Count was behind all the assassination attempts, and he was going to just leave everything like that. Ainz noted that this man was a relative of his wife's. Therefore, he couldn't do whatever he wanted without consulting her. The butler turned to the gentleman and informed him that he had received an invitation from the imperial palace. Several aristocrats were killed in a landslide, and the imperial family and Count Leaf will hold a memorial ceremony. He noticed that the lady was settling down under the children and saying that they had a good time today. The lady also wished the boy sweet dreams. Ainz simply watched silently. The children were very happy when it snowed, and the little girl invited her brother to play snowballs. Mirhan told the children to be careful, because they might catch a cold again. After this, a gentleman approached her, and the lady was surprised that he was there. Ainz added that it was cold today, and asked her not to stay outside for too long, and he would order the servants to look after the children. The lady said everything was fine, and decided to talk about what she had said last time. They would leave as soon as the snow melted. Ainz said that an invitation had arrived from the emperor, and he would like to take all the knights with him, but perhaps that was impossible. The lady thought for a moment and said that it was nothing special, because even a couple would be enough for them. The main thing was to protect the children. Ainz remained silent, and then noted that perhaps one of those who was attacking the children was Count Tayan. The lady was surprised her husband asked if the liana was in order. The lady did not understand how it should be otherwise. She told him that if her father was really involved, she was asking his permission to deal with him. Ainz didn't mind, because he'd been thinking about it too. After that, the gentleman turned away, his face flushed. Mirhan did not understand what it was, and thought that he wanted to say something, but the gentleman bowed and said that it was time for him to go. The lady thought this was strange, and the little girl came up to her from behind and asked what she and her husband were talking about. Joseph told Reef that it was forbidden to eavesdrop on strangers' conversations. The little girl noted that he had been curious too. The boy asked what that was. The lady was just about to tell them about it, but perhaps she shouldn't. But the children asked her to tell them because they were very interested. Ainz suggested they all go to their grandfather's together. Reef was overjoyed, but the boy wasn't. The lady asked why he wasn't happy. Joseph said he was happy, but he was afraid something bad would happen. Mirhan took his hand and said that everything would be fine, and that Ainz would protect them. The boy asked if it was true, and the lady remarked that he was very strong, so everything would be fine, that's for sure. It seemed like a blanket of snow was about to cover the entire world. Well, the snow melted faster than she knew it, and the day of her departure to the capital arrived. The little girl ran to Asher and asked if he would go with them. The gentleman didn't say, but of course he would be happy to go. He took them in his arms, and the lady noticed that the children liked him, and he liked them too. Still, they are happy she needs to tell them about the adoption, but she is interested in how they will react to this. Reef called the master, because she already wanted to leave as quickly as possible. The little girl quickly called him into the carriage and asked him to put her in there. When he picked up the baby, she was very happy. The gentleman noticed that her brother looked a little sad, so he stroked his head. Afterwards, he turned to his wife and remarked that he was surprised that she was already here. Mirhan decided to ask if everything was ready for departure. If he hadn't told her that 13 knights would be traveling with them, including Sir Arito, Asher will ride with them in the carriage. Merchant asked Reef to get off, because Ainz was in pain, but the master said everything was fine. The baby is light, so it's no trouble for him. Reef was already eager to get into the carriage. Ainz asked the little girl to sit properly so as not to fall. The gentleman also helped Joseph climb in, and the boy was also very grateful to him. Before the ambulance, I noted that at first, he had no idea how to behave with children. But now everything is different. She wondered what had changed. While she was lost in her thoughts, the gentleman was already inviting her into the carriage. Merchant froze for a second. She tried to refuse, but the gentleman pointed out that the step was too high, and it would be difficult for her to get up on her own. Therefore, the lady realized that nothing could be done and gave her hand to her husband. Eins noted that she shouldn't worry about anything, because everything would be fine. The way he holds her hand, Eins is lying to me, and she doesn't need to answer him. Thus began their journey. On the first day, there was a threat of monster attack. Well, with the help of Asher's magic, everything worked out, and no one even noticed anything. The next day, you were upset because it was time for them to go, and the little one wanted to play in this village some more. The move was long and they're exhausted. Asher saw so many wonders and they're still bored. Reef agreed that magic was interesting, but she wanted more. Usher informed the Duchess that he would have to leave. Lord said he frightened her. Asher apologized and expressed surprise with you that the lady was seeing levitation magic for the first time. So since they don't know when the monsters will decide to attack again, they take turns standing guard. And today, it's Ains's turn. The little girl was upset that Asher would not go with them, and the magician could do nothing about it. He asked that the children not get too bored, because they would still be able to see the magic. Well, they didn't understand how Asher gave them a book, and said it was a magical book, and they would have to study it themselves. There were many wizards in the Lief family, so the siren was the first of the family who was able to read all the secrets of the Askea treasure. The fact that Asher gave Reef this book can only mean that she has magical abilities. Asher asked the lady if she wanted to study magic with him. The baby was shocked with you that she can do this, and if so, then she really wants to. The lady turned to Asher and asked if he was really giving her his magic book. The mage told the lady that she knew he was the best mage in Rhinesvine. The lady confirmed this. He was the most knowledgeable about magic, and she hoped he would help the little girl with her studies. The mage was grateful that his mistress trusted him. He told Eins to get ready for the journey, so it was time to get into the carriage. The gentleman turned away and told him to go himself. The man didn't quite understand why the gentleman was acting this way. Asher tried to deny it, but the gentleman said he would go. Merhin thought it was because the gentleman was comfortable with her. These words surprised Asher very much, and he said that this was not so. And on the contrary, his master was not like that. Reef told Asher that the carriage had stopped, and the gentleman remarked that this was very strange. He told Madame that he would be leaving for a while, but the children thought it was not worth it. The lady hoped everything would be all right. Reef asked the lady why he hadn't come yet, and she didn't even know what to answer. It was already very late, so the lady herself did not understand where he was now, and did not want to believe that it was possible that the monsters were responsible for this. The lady said that she would go for him. Reef began to say that she wanted to go too. Merhin told her it wasn't right, because it was cold outside, and she might catch a cold. She'd be back soon, and they should sit quietly here for now. The children asked her to bring Eins too. The lady did not refuse them. When she opened the door and walked out, you saw that everything was covered in blood. She didn't understand what had happened there. The carriage is undamaged, and the main thing is that the children don't suspect a thing. This is all thanks to Asher's magical calculation and Ains's protection from the outside. A knight approached her and asked why she had left. The lady asked him if he had been wounded. Cerizette said he was fine. None of the knights were seriously injured. The lady asked if he could take her to her husband, and he told her where they needed to go. They came up and heard Asher saying that the gentleman needed to stop being stubborn, or things would only get worse. The lady noted that there was blood on him, and believed that he had been attacked by a monster. The Duke turned to Merhin and began asking why she had gotten out of the carriage. He would ask her to come back. If she came too close, everything would be bad. Merhin didn't understand where she should return to, because he was simply asking her to leave and leave him like this. Asher asked the lady to persuade the gentleman to return as well. He wanted the lady to tell him something, because he was very stubborn and he was badly hurt. Asher used healing magic, but he won't be able to stop the bleeding if he opens up early, but he still doesn't plan on riding in the carriage. The Duke said he would ride a horse. The man tried to explain that they would open early. Merchant asked him not to be stubborn. Ains said he wasn't doing that. The lady was angry because he was arguing again. She asked Asher if he could go and take the poop. They'd put him in the carriage. Asher said that of course he could, and naturally, he could protect them from the outside. Merhan called her husband to follow her and offered him her hand. Ein said he was fine, and the lady said she knew, but he didn't understand why she was acting like that. The lady is just fine with me. That's why I asked him to go. The lady said that he could lean on her, and so they walked to the carriage. Thank God the children didn't suspect anything and were already asleep. He was very tired, so he needed to rest. She told him the children were sleeping, so he could network as he liked. The Duke asked if he could open the window. Merchant noted that the cold wind wouldn't do him any good. It's stuffy here. Eins asked if he stank because the smell was simply awful. He smells of blood and rot. Merhan moved over to him and said that wasn't true. He didn't smell of anything. Even now, when she was sitting next to him, the gentleman became embarrassed and blushed. The carriage continued to travel for some time, before stopping in front of an inn. Although she saw that Asher tried to cure Eins, she doesn't know how successful he was. Since he said he's fine, there's probably nothing to worry about. Let him rest. Merhan decided to go to her room, but her husband came out and addressed her. She just came to ask if he was okay. Eins said he was fine. Well, that she would really go to her room like that. The lady was surprised. She didn't understand why he was talking like that. A little while later, the little girl ran up to her and made her happy when she saw her mistress. Eins and Merchant were very embarrassed. The little girl was glad that Eins was there too. They asked the little girl where her brother was, but she pointed in that direction. Joseph said he'd lost to her in a snowball fight. Eins approached the boy and said that he could get sick this way, so he should go into the room to warm up. Reef said that she also wanted to follow her because she was cold too. Merhan asked Reef if Diana wanted to go with them. The little girl said she would go too. She remembered and said that she would like to drink cocoa together with cookies. That night, the children quickly fell asleep, warmed up after the cold, and as soon as this happened, Eins left the room. The lady didn't expect to run into him at first, so she has nothing to be upset about. Well, easier said than done. The kids have already gone to bed without dinner, so they'll probably wake up hungry. She knew she had to go and ask for it to be cooked for tomorrow. As the lady was leaving, she bumped into her husband. She was surprised to see him. Merchant decided to ask him what he was doing there. Eins said Asher had set up a magical ward, as they didn't know what might happen, and he too decided to go out on patrol with the knights. The lady was shocked because he was hurt. Even if he was healed, he couldn't move for long with such wounds. The gentleman noted that she too had gotten up early. Merhan told him that the children would most likely wake up early and be very hungry, so he should ask for breakfast to be prepared. Eins suggested he do it himself. The lady remarked that he needed rest, and he followed her anyway. Merhan told him to look after the children instead of her. The master said it was for them. There was no need to worry so much. The knight greeted the lady. The lady was surprised that Poe was there too, but she didn't understand why. The boy said he was a knight. The gentleman said he needed to make breakfast. It's already dawn, morning has arrived. They've encountered each other before at the mansion. Eins turned to his wife and said that if she didn't mind, he suggested that they go for a walk together. Merhan became embarrassed and asked again, then said that the children would wake up soon, so she needed to quickly prepare breakfast for them. So the lady left immediately and quickly. She was so embarrassed that she told him without even noticing it. The gentleman thought that he was in too much of a hurry because he even felt guilty. Their hearts circled around each other again and again, and the carriage continued to move. Asher told the master and mistress to look out the window because they had already reached the capital. Incidentally, there's a mansion there belonging to the Rhineswein family. Perhaps because Eins rarely leaves his estate, the house looked a bit abandoned. Fig was met by the butler, who said that he wanted to show the lady the mansion. The butler showed them and the children through all the rooms and said that if they needed anything, they could call him. Despite the dilapidated appearance, all the premises were in good condition. There was not a single diaper missing. The children thought it was very beautiful, and there was plenty of space. So the lady rejoiced along with them. Suddenly, someone burst into the room, and everyone wondered who it was. It was Grandpa. The twins were very happy. The gentleman picked them up and was very happy to see the little ones. Merhan was pleased to see them so cheerful. She couldn't even find a moment to join in. The gentleman was also pleased to meet Duchess Rhineswein. The Count remarked that she had taken excellent care of the children. The lady also greeted him and introduced herself. She figured he probably wanted to spend time with his grandchildren so she could leave them alone. The gentleman said that it was not worth it, but the lady wished them a good time and said that she would leave. The grandfather was grateful the lady wished them a good time, and the children said goodbye to her. Sir Govert is their grandfather after all, and she feels like she's out of place, so she decided to leave, after which her husband approached her. Now he knew where she had been. The lady said that she simply decided to leave and leave the children with the Marquise, so as not to embarrass them. Ines hadn't yet discussed adoption with him. The lady couldn't believe he understood how she felt. She thanked him and said that she hadn't talked about this with the kids yet either. It's all good. If it's hard for her, he can handle it himself. But Marin said there was no need because everything was fine. She decided it herself. The children look so happy. They are her precious brother and sister, but she will never know who she is to them. In this state, it is difficult for her to control her facial expression in front of her husband. The mansion is old, so the rooms are laid out in a confusing way. She might get lost on her own, so he asks permission to guide her. If she suddenly needed to go somewhere, the lady didn't even know what to tell him. The gentleman said that he would then accompany her throughout the house. The lady was surprised and asked again. Her mood seemed to draw Ines closer. He was told that a gardener had been working there. But since the garden has been abandoned for a long time, she might not like it. And when the lady saw the garden, she was pleasantly surprised and said that it was very beautiful there, and she liked it. Ines said that in that case, he was very glad. Already in the garden, he turned to the lady, and the lady noticed that although the grass was thick, it was still very beautiful there. And suddenly, she noticed a tea table. It was in poor condition, covered in mold. Then the gentleman finally found it. They both became embarrassed. The lady remarked that she seemed to be walking too quickly. The Duke didn't even know such a place existed here. Otherwise, he would have ordered everything to be put in order. Manhwa told him not to worry, because it could be done later. Serena and John are the children's parents, and she can't replace them, and the children will forget. They will come back here often, so that the little ones can remember their mom and dad when they miss them. And together with Ines, she must try for their sake. The lady said she wanted to go to Count Thine. In that case, the gentleman suggested they go together. The woman did not refuse and understood that there were no real options. If she went with him, she would reveal her sins, and that would be it. The lady heard the girl calling her, and when she turned around in spite, she saw Asher and Reef standing there. The mage noted that he was about to send people to search for the Marquise Reef, asked what they were doing there. The lady said they were looking at flowers. The little girl said she wanted to look too, but the lady only asked where Joseph had gone. He and Grandpa are talking about something boring about all sorts of complicated things that she can't understand. They're probably discussing history. Reef called Ines because she wanted to look at the flowers together. The gentleman agreed, and then the girl took their hands and was very happy. The little girl noticed something there and pointed to the table. She remarked that it would be nice to have tea there. The Duke asked Asher to fulfill his request. The mage immediately realized that his master wanted him to restore order. If he wants something, he just has to say it out loud because he told him about it. Reef was delighted because everything immediately began to shine. Little Merchant suggested that they have a tea party here tomorrow. There will be her Merchant, Joseph Asher Rowe, and Grandpa. Asher noted that it looked like it would rain until their wake. The lady remarked that she and Ines had planned to visit Count Thane today. The magician said that I should worry about this, because if nature is not mature enough, then it will not interfere with their date. Manhwa decided to ask where Reef was, because she hadn't seen her for a long time. Asher wanted to say something, but the little girl had already run up to Manhwa. She'd arrived just in time. Manhwa, you asked the baby if she should have been with Asher. Reef noted that she told him to come here first. She wanted to show her something. After this, the lady put the girl on the floor, and the little one said that she would show her now. Reef can use magic. Manhwa came to ask the little girl what it was. Asher added that she had discovered magical abilities in herself, just like he had. Reef said she wanted to do what Asher did, but she only knew how to do a little bit. But the gentleman said even that was impressive. Reef didn't think it was impressive at all. While the mage was willing to argue with her, the lady remarked that they were just like little children. Manhwa added that she was impressed. So Reef is smart. The little girl said she wanted something. She couldn't protect her before, but Ines could. And Reef also wants to protect her, so she will quickly learn everything and become strong and will protect them. Well, the lady didn't agree with her because she and her should continue to remain children. Merhen hugged her and believed that, on the contrary, she should protect them. Ains approached Milady, having finally found her. With him were the grandfather and the baby. Reef was very happy when she saw her grandfather and immediately ran to him. The Lord remembered that it was time for them to go. She asked the children to obey their grandfather. Reef said they would wait for them. The lady decided she would not take the children into the Earl of Thyne's house. Surely it was he who wanted to harm them. The gentleman was glad to see them and noted that their visit was a great deal for them. Merhen didn't understand why he was here alone and where Lady Rhenia Tyne was. The Count noted that even his wife came with the Duke, and they couldn't even imagine how happy he was. The Duke remarked that they hadn't seen each other for a long time, and that it seemed like a lot had changed in the mansion. The Count remarked that 5 years had passed since he left the estate. It's a short period of time, and a lot can change in that time. Merchant agrees with him on this point. However, before Merchant moved to the Duke of Rhinesweyn's estate, the Tine family was so ruined that it was not even possible to change the dinnerware. It's hard to believe that everything has changed so much here. But now she has to find out where the money for this came from. The Count said they could come in here. Inside, everything had changed too. Merhen didn't think that they would change the decor only in anticipation of their newspaper with Einziu. The gentleman noticed that a portrait of Empress Idia was hanging there. The Duke looked at his wife, after which she noticed that she looked very much like her. This surprised the lady. Idia Tyne. She allowed the Eastern dragon Eskaya to remain in the empire, leading to its prosperity. Eskaya is the tablet of all knowledge, the source of wisdom, and the sword of the night. She received 3 treasures from the dragon, which she distributed among 3 noble families. The Count remarked that the Duke seemed to have also noticed how much Merhen resembled Empress Idia. He then noticed that she was also popular in high society. Suitors from almost every family wooed Merhen. But for him, the biggest thing is that his daughter married the Duke. It's just ridiculous he used Merhen to get more wealth. Well, when everything didn't go according to plan, he locked his daughter in the room and called her a useless girl. Merhen thought it was just disgusting, and her head even started spinning. The Duke turned to the Count and said that it seemed his wife was uncomfortable, so he grabbed his arm. The Count apologized, not saying he'd been rude, but the Duke had gone a bit overboard too. Merchant told him she was fine. Eins wanted to ask again, but the lady smiled at him. She said that she was sure that he was just glad to meet them, so there was no need to be too strict with him. The gentleman asked the Count to look at him, since there had been attempts on his life recently. The Duke himself didn't even notice how hot-tempered he had become. The Count said there was nothing wrong with it. He was very aware that they had such a strong relationship, and therefore suggested that they just continue. He pretends to be concerned about her, but he doesn't react to the news that she is being threatened. Eins also seemed to notice how stupid this man Count Tyne was. The gentlemen dined together, and Count Gavriloff said he was glad that the food was to their taste. Their best chef prepared it. It was so spiced it left me hungry. The knight entered the room and asked the master for forgiveness, but he had something to tell him. Merhen noticed that Eins's expression changed, so she believed that something had happened. She didn't want to think about something happening to the children. The Duke informed Zhenya that he would have to leave and also asked for forgiveness from Count Thyne. The gentleman said that there was nothing to worry about, and that they had not spoken alone with the Duchess for a long time. Ains looked at my lady and wanted to ask her again, but the lady said that everything was fine, so he could go. The Count remarked that they seemed to get along well, while everyone said he was as cold as ice. Well, father is glad that everything is well with her. The lady turned to the Count and told him to speak to her in a respectful tone. The man immediately became worried and asked what she had just said. After that, he calmed down and apologized to the Duchess. He was simply very happy to see her after so long. His attitude toward her must have changed because of Eins. Apparently, because everything was going well between her and her husband, she forced her father to treat her differently. She noted that she was also very glad to see him, and that he seemed to be doing well here. Recently, the family was in such a dire situation that they tried to sell the portrait of Empress Idia. The lady was surprised to see him there. The Count was angry because this girl was allowing herself to do such a thing. Merhen also noted that Lady Rhenia hadn't greeted them. The gentleman had reported that she was feeling ill and was resting in her bedroom. Well, he's grateful that she asked, and he's always said that there's nothing more important than family. The lady noted that indeed, for the sake of the family, one must think about grandchildren. The man stood up and shouted at his daughter to ask if they had really decided to adopt these puppies. The lady told the Count to watch his words. Joseph and Reef were under her and her husband's protection, so she doesn't understand how he dares to insult them like that. He also shouldn't forget that their grandfather, Ravez Govart, is still alive, and she thinks he understands what she's getting at. She decides to end it there. The lady would like to see the mansion, so she asked him to give her a tour. The father would have shoved the kids into the closet, and now he's dissatisfied that things aren't going his way. At the same time, Reef and Joseph were playing, but they were bored. Joseph told his sister to read a book Reef couldn't understand how to live, if all she could do was read books. The little girl wanted him to play with her, but the guy said that she would want to play tag again. Reef thought it was a lot of fun, but the boy thought it was stupid and asked her to play chess. I wanted Reef because he wins every time. She also noticed that something had fallen out of his book. It was just a leaf, so the little girl suggested that he just throw it away. Joseph said that it was impossible, because Eins had given them this book. The baby accidentally cut himself and started bleeding. His sister suggested he go to row. Joseph said no need, because he might just bleed. The little girl asked what they would do with this leaf, since a little blood got on it. But that's not scary. But suddenly, this leaf began to glow, and the boy realized that it was magic. The twins teleported somewhere together. When the maid entered, she was horrified. She wanted to tell them that she had prepared a snack for them, but she found no one there. Reef begged her brother to open his eyes. They were delighted when they saw where they were. The boy assumed that it was an enchanted leaf that belonged to Eins. Reef said that, in that case, they had entered his secret world, but Asher's book said that only wizards could have their own secret worlds. So it's not entirely clear who created this place. Reef told her brother to look in that direction. The boy asked her to wait and not go alone, but the little girl had already run away. Joseph shouted that it was a precious stone. Reef froze in front of him. Reef told her brother that it was very beautiful there. The boy said that it looked very much like the bracelet that Merhen was wearing. The boy said that he knew, and this one also had a blue tint. Reef asked the boy if he thought Eins and Merhen would like it if she didn't bring the decoration. I was surprised that this was the only thing she had questions about. The little one pointed out that they'd get out of here anyway. Joseph thought about what would happen if he touched it. He knew they needed to go back, but Reef's magic wouldn't help them. If they do something wrong, it can only make things worse, so the boy said that everyone will worry if they don't come back. Eins and Merchen will probably be very sad for them. The little girl said she doesn't want Merchen to be sad, so the boy asked Reef to try to touch him. The little girl asked if she really should do this. Joseph said there was nothing else they could do. If I continue to stand around all day, Merchen and Eins will start to worry about them. The little girl was upset and said that she would do it for them. Joseph asked her to touch each other for the count of 3. After that, a green light began to glow on them. Then they returned to their room, and the maid was very happy when she saw them. They didn't understand where they were, because they saw the coat of arms on the wall. This is the Howard family crest. The little girl was happy that they were home, but the maid didn't understand how they ended up there. The boy realized they had returned, but he noticed he had this decoration around his neck. She didn't understand why he had this thing around his neck, because he just touched it. It means that it was the pendant that sent them here. The kid didn't understand at all how they could explain this to their grandfather, the magician Eins and Merhen. The grandfather burst into the room, calling for the children. The little girl threw herself into his arms. He said they were hooligans, because he was so worried about them. The little girl said she was scared too. Joseph took a piece of paper and then transported them to a strange place. Grandfather was shocked and asked again what it meant. Reef noticed that stars were falling everywhere. The Count did not understand at all what she was talking about, and Asher approached the lady and asked if she remembered the book that he gave her. The man asked what she was doing if she didn't want to get caught. Reef said they needed to hide. Grandfather asked what that meant and why she needed to hide. He also wondered what that blue light was. The little girl said it was nothing special, and that it was her and Asher's secret. Joseph was worried. Reef told her grandfather that she was hungry. She played all day and was very hungry. Grandpa suggested they go get a snack, because he just happened to have her favorite candy. Joseph approached Asher. He wanted to ask him something. The magician said that it was okay, and told the master to give it to him. The kid thought he'd picked up what he wanted to say. When he handed it to Asher, it lit up and disappeared. The boy was surprised, and the man told him to look at his wrist. He said the Eye of Wisdom had chosen him. The Count asked the Duchess how she was. Everything here had changed beyond recognition, and he wondered if she thought the same. Now, having achieved greatness for their family, he can die in peace, knowing that his descendants will not be ashamed of him. The gentleman noted that she had heard that the family business had closed, and she believed it had cost the Rhinesveins dearly. The Count hesitated and said it wasn't exactly expensive, but it was something like that. He thought she was being very impudent. Suddenly, a woman addressed her. The Count was terrified when he saw his beloved leave. The woman asked if she really was Merchant. I didn't understand at all why she came out. The woman said she'd heard news about a woman taking in Howard's children. The woman said she missed her very much. Grob pointed out that she hadn't known people would be coming, so he asked her to stop making noise and go back to her room. According to Merhin's memories, this woman is as much a burden to the family of secrets as Merhin is, Count Rania Tyne's wife. She was the only daughter of a wealthy family, and therefore, marriage had, one might say, a political character. The rich needed connections with aristocrats, and the aristocrats needed money. After Rania had played her role, I stopped paying attention to her altogether. She doesn't know if it was because she saw her locked in her room as a friend in misfortune. But Rania often came to her room and said that perhaps she herself did not want to believe it yet. It can't be said that they often talked, because she always just remained silent and listened to her. The woman said that in reality it was impossible to live like a princess from a fairy tale, so she would just like to live quietly without any luxury. She would have a sweet husband with whom she would give birth to a child they would barely taste. Hot eggs laugh a lot, but to live even such a life, she would need to be incredibly lucky. So she just has to accept it, so that it won't hurt later. While this family treats her like a ghost, she'll live the life that's hers. Rania tells her this for her own good, and that is why she asked if she wanted to thank her. Merhin didn't understand whether she should respond somehow. Perhaps she got tired of her not responding and stopped visiting her. The Count was thinking about having another child. Even in front of this cruel man, she pretended Merchant didn't exist. Rania shouted to Merhin that it was her the Count tried to explain to her that she should be quieter. The woman broke free and screamed that she wanted to see her, after which she burst into tears and ran towards her. Merhin was shocked by Rinia's expression. It seemed very familiar. This is what a person grieving the loss of a child looks like. Pain and despair in every look. Merchant really doesn't want to be reminded of this. When she opened her eyes, you saw her husband in front of you, holding this woman back. He remarked that he didn't think they should stay there. He took his wife's hand and asked her to get into the carriage first. The woman tried to stop the Duke. The gentleman didn't know the Countess was also in the mansion. He said he wasn't trying to hide her. She just happened to leave. The Duke said there was no need to explain anything to him, and he didn't need his answers. They could meet at the memorial ceremony. Ines said it was time for them to leave, so they would be leaving. After that, they headed to the place. The lady was surprised and did not understand why they were at the Govart mansion, because they were supposed to return to their place. The gentleman said that Asher spoke to him, and according to him, it is safer here. The lady did not want to believe that while they were visiting, someone had attempted to harm them, and asked what was wrong with the children and whether they were okay. The gentleman said no one had attacked, and there was no need to worry. After that, the lady noticed the little girl running toward her, calling her name. Reef welcomed her into her home. The lady immediately jumped up to her and asked where Joseph and the Marquise of Revez were. The little girl said that her brother is now with Asher, and they are heading in that direction, and Grandpa Ravez was in his office. The lady looked at Joseph and realized something was wrong. Merhin asked Asher to tell her in detail what happened to the children during their absence, but for some reason, he kept glancing at Ines. And then she said that there were problems with the protective barrier above the mansion, which is why he had to urgently send the children to the Howard estate. He apologized to the Duchess. Despite his unusual politeness and the fact that Asher was generally infallible, she didn't ask any questions. Merchant suggested the children go inside to play. Her priority was to take care of the children, who were probably the most frightened of all. Ines realized they had vanished and ended up in the place where the Eye of Wisdom was kept. Asher wasn't sure, but judging by the young master and mistress's words, that was the case. But he couldn't understand how they'd managed to get there. The magician explained that the book Mr. Joseph was reading contained a piece of paper with an invisible magic circle. Heinz remembered that John had given him that book, and he tells me who thought what. It seemed these two had not received the eye of wisdom. When he saw them, he noticed nothing strange about them. The Duke asked what His Excellency thought about it. Asher remarked that he too was perplexed by the situation. The gentleman inquired about the likelihood that they hadn't been chosen as the owner. Otherwise, why didn't they bring the eye with them if they got to the place where it was kept? The chances are high. But then there's a problem with the continuation of the Govert line. Mr. Revez is currently studying the records in his office. Heinz understood and suggested that they should discuss this matter together, but the mage tried to stop him. He asked what to do with it, since it was still on him. Heinz asked him to sort it out before the memorial ceremony. Asher understood that he simply had no choice, and said that it would not be difficult for an experienced wizard like him to hide and make that box. Only he doesn't understand why he's doing this, and why he brought this box here. Ains said it wasn't him who did it. And this surprised the mage. The children handed the box over to the gentleman, and said that Merhin should not know about it, because they had prepared everything in advance. There is no one to receive the letters they wrote to their parents here now. If they continued writing, Merhin would become sad, so she and the children decided not to burn the letters. Merhin would be even more upset if they found out that they did this, so they came up with the idea of hiding everything. None of them wanted to see her sad. The children said goodbye to her and said they would go to their room to sleep. Reef didn't understand why this was happening and asked her brother if she could go to bed with Merhint. The boy noted that they hadn't been home for a long time, so they should go to bed in their room. The lady asked if they should go to bed too, but the gentleman said he still needed to discuss something with the Marquise Revez, and she could go and rest. Merchant thought maybe he wanted to talk about that. Well, he said he wouldn't talk about transferring custody of the children. He will only raise this topic after she talks to the kids, so she shouldn't worry about going to bed. There will come a time when they will discuss adoption with the children, but they have long noticed the distance between her and Einsi. They probably haven't had time to come to terms with their parents' deaths, so this conversation might make things even harder for them. She's going through so much. Suddenly, Merhin screamed, and her husband immediately burst into the room and asked if she was okay. The lady herself was scared of him and said that everything was fine, and she was just scared because of the insect. He asked which one, but the lady noted that she was probably frightened by her scream and flew away, so he shouldn't worry. Asher remarked from the window that he was shocked with you that she was so afraid of bugs. The lady, horrified, asked him what he was doing there so late. He heard screams and came. Asher actually works at night and was just casting spells on the mansion. She was probably very scared because she turned very pale and looked like chalk, but he is sure that everything is fine now. Merhin said that she was feeling better and asked if this meant that the protective spell was working again. Asher noted that for a mage of the Reinswein family, such spells were nonsense. Merhin noted that it turned out that tomorrow they would return to the Reinswein mansion again. Asher told her that before that, he would ask again if it was definitely okay. Merhin tried to answer that everything was fine, but she failed, and for some reason, tears began to flow down her cheeks. Asher turned to the Duchess and said that everything was fine, and she could tell him. The lady said that she was not okay, because she was not okay at all, and she did not know why Rinia addressed her like that. The lady didn't understand why everyone spoke her name so calmly. She wasn't Merhin, but her memories haunted her constantly. As long as the second personality's memory is alive, it will never be happy. The woman said she needed to get rid of Rinia. The mage asked if she would like to go somewhere with him. The lady asked him where he was taking her. There's a saying from a country that disappeared long ago. The bull's horns need to be cut off before it starts budding, so something needs to be done now, so you don't have to worry about it later. Merhin came to Rinia and was very surprised when she saw her and asked if she was really Merhinne. Zeshtishena screamed that she was to blame for everything and that it was all her fault. Merhin tried to calm her down and asked her not to scream. Rinia continued to ask her to return her child. Merhin was surprised. After that, they put her to bed. Merhin heard for the first time that she had a child, as she hadn't had one when she lived here. The lady needed to know what had happened to her, so she asked Asher to help her. Eins approached his wife to ask what was wrong. He noticed that when he returned, no one was there, so he decided to ask if she'd been with Asher. The lady simply remained silent in response. After that, she finally confirmed it and said that she would like to talk to him because she had a question. She needed to know if the Count and Countess had a child. Rinia blurted it out and begged for her child to be returned to her. She was sobbing almost hysterically, and she could barely understand her words. Merchant wants to know what happened. Ein said there was a child, but it died before it was even 10 days old. Merhin didn't understand what she had to do with it, and why this woman was asking her for such a thing, since she didn't even know that they had a child. The gentleman told her that it was already late, so she should rest. Ains promised to try to find out something about it, and asked her to go to bed. Asher came to the master because he had been summoned. Ains asked him if he was in his right mind. The man noted that the gentleman was busy, and he was simply accompanying the Duchess in his place. Ains asked him not to make his wife nervous unnecessarily, as he did not want to make her life even more difficult. So he asked Asher to stay away from her for a while. The mage was surprised. He shouted that this was too much, because he was protecting his house day and night. Balya, he took his wife to the Countess of Secrets. He also had to find out what had happened to her. Ains ordered that everything be found out about the child who was said to have died. Asher understood that this wasn't a request, but an order. The gentleman noted that he was indeed right, and that it was an order. A few days later, the lady was informed that guests were waiting for her outside, so she should come out to them. They introduced themselves as members of the mystery family. This is Rinia. The children went out with their mistress, but Merhen told them to go play with Azette. She also asked that they not misbehave or hurt each other. Reef said she would be the first to search. Rinia turned to Merhen, and the lady asked her to follow her. Because it seemed like they had something to talk about, the woman immediately tried to talk about her child. But Merhen turned to her and said that first of all, she would say that she does not have this child. The woman screamed that this couldn't be happening. Merkin said that if they told her they had him, it wasn't true. Ains found out everything her child died 10 days after birth. Rinia said that wasn't true, and her child wasn't dead. She didn't have to return him if she didn't want to, but she just had to tell him if he was okay. The lady asked her to tell her what had happened. Ains asked if it was all true. Unfortunately, the Countess's child had fallen into the hands of slave traders operating in the county. He said that Ian was adopted by the Duke. Her own husband told her this. Although she lived on the edge of the forest, this was Rhinesvine land. She wanted Ian to live a happy life, but at the time things were going badly for them, and they were having a very hard time. She thought that things weren't so bad since she lived there, so she agreed to give her son to the Duke. While she never heard from her son again, she wrote letters asking him to tell her how he was doing, but there was no answer, and she even sent servants to see them. However, no one ever returned to her all this time, despite everything she believed that he was fine, until she learned that the Marquis of Govart's children had come to live with them. As soon as she found out, she set off here. She said she couldn't allow these children, Reef and Joseph, to remain here. Her husband was going to kill them, just as he had taken her son. At that very moment, the Count ran up to her and shouted that she was lying, because his wife had gone mad with grief, and she would make her own life more difficult if she believed hers. Mirren said it was up to her to decide whether to believe her or not. From now on, he would answer her questions, for example, who this Eins was to whom he gave the child. The Count couldn't understand how she dared. How could anyone from that family suspect him of something like that? He shouted that they were nobody, and for him, she was the same as the beggars on the street. The Count pulled out a knife, and it was covered in blood. When the lady opened her eyes, she saw that it was impaled on a sword. Her husband did this and asked Merhen if it had hurt her. 2 people were injured. When he arrived at the scene, they were already dead. Eins asked Merchant how she was. The lady burst into tears. After this, the lady sat and cried in her bed, locked away from everyone. She was thinking about her brothers and sister, and suddenly the children called her and asked if she was there. They asked what had happened and why she had hidden from them. Merhen said nothing. She was just a little tired. Reef said it wasn't true because she was crying there. But you offended your brother and sister right next to you, If she doesn't want to tell, then they don't force her. Instead, they will guard her until she gets better. Reef told her not to worry because they wouldn't let anyone in here. Merhen asked them if they liked her, and the children in unison said yes. Reef noted that she liked her even more than heaven and earth, and the boy even more. The children began to argue about who really liked her more. Merhin said she liked them as much as they liked her. In fact, much more. That's why she wants them to grow up safe and healthy. Merhin sat down next to them and asked if they would mind becoming her and Ein's children. They will be able to return here whenever they want, and they can return to the family of the Marquis of Gavart at any time. But for protection purposes, they would temporarily take their last name. The children immediately agreed. They really liked this idea Joseph had a lot to say about, which the lady burst into tears. She hugged the children, and the next day, the gentleman told her that the Count said that the boy had suddenly died. The Countess of Secrets couldn't provide any more information, but the lady wanted to know what had happened. What really happened to Ian Rinia's son? The gentleman said that he had just met with the nanny of young Mr. Ridien. The lady realized that Ian was a shortened name. He had heard that all the servants in the Count's estate had been replaced after he was taken away. Their dismissal alone was too cruel an act, but after that, servants began to disappear without a trace. Ridiana's nanny left burns on her face so that no one could recognize her, and she said that the boy was alive. Sometimes everything around Ridiana would literally glow purple. The lady was shocked and remarked that it was magic. The Count didn't want anyone to know about his son's magical abilities. Eins promised the Countess to find her son, but apparently he is now living under a different name. If they had a child with magical abilities, then Count F would like to tell everyone about it. He is only interested in power and influence, and a magician's son would be a great opportunity to improve his reputation and place in society. The lady asked if they could make the imperial family their enemies. Eins said that of course they could, and there was no trace of doubt in his gaze. For some reason, Eins trusts her implicitly. The thought of betraying his trust terrifies her. Merkin said she'd spoken to the children and didn't agree they'd become so accustomed to the silence between them. The lady asked him to arrange everything with the Marquise. The man stood up and said he would do so. But now this silence made them uncomfortable. Merhin called him again, but she didn't understand why she had called out to him to make him look at her. Merhin told him that she had been avoiding him all this time because she was afraid. She left with that and said she just wanted him to know. When she came out, she was barely able to catch her breath. The servant turned to the master, and he asked, what was the matter? He wanted to report that Mr. Silion had gotten much worse. The gentleman ordered him to repeat it, because he is sure that just yesterday he was told that he was getting better. The servant apologized and asked if Duke Reinswein and his wife had arrived to meet. The servant confirmed this and noted that they were now staying at the Govart mansion. The man ordered them to send an invitation, and the servant was very surprised. The gentleman asked if he should repeat it, but the servant said that it was not necessary and that he would do it right away. Well, it's quite possible that someone will die soon. Reef was very pleased with her purchase and told Merhin that she had bought it. The lady thought it was a book of fairy tales. Asher asked if he, a poor wizard, could get a raise, because if they knew how much the book was worth, they would be shocked. The little girl and her brother were absolutely delighted when they saw this book. Eins asked Asher to tone down his jokes because they were making his wife feel awkward. The magician only said to look at how cold his master was always. Eins noted that the kids needed some clothes. It seemed they'd soon outgrow these, so it would be nice to get some new ones. Reef said that she wanted all of this princess's dresses. Joseph said that his sister was greedy, but she didn't agree. Eins offered his hand to his wife to help her up. After that, they went to the studio and were greeted by Madame Elise. She assumed they were the Reinswein family. They were very happy to help the gentleman. She heard that they wanted the young master and young mistress clothes to match, so you just came to them and told them not to worry, because they would do everything in the best possible way. When the lady brought them into the room, the Duchess was shocked. Madame believed that she was there for the first time. Their store is full of magic stones. They move them wherever the guest wants, and this is the pride of their store. Madame told me that this place is the hill of Askea's first love. Asher asked whose first love he was. Madame was surprised and asked him who he was. They had 4 seats reserved for members of the Reinswein family. The magician approached her and told her she should be more polite to him. Eins asked him to wait outside, but the magician said that he had always been by his side since childhood. Merhin told him they would see each other, but a little later, Asher became upset and left. Meanwhile, the woman suggested that they finish their tour of the store. It took a lot of magic stones to build this place, But the second prince of Ursula helped them a lot with this, so they had the chance to sew a tailcoat for him. The lady also asked if they had ever seen him in a tailcoat with an obsidian brooch. It was the pride of their collection, one of the most important. The maid approached Miss, or there noted that it seemed that everything was already ready. She provided them with a collection of her store's designs, which they could examine while they were being measured. They can choose whatever they like. Merchant didn't even know when she'd be able to look at it all. Ains remarked that it looked good. He pointed to the dress and asked how it looked on her. I've already noticed that it's cute, even beautiful, and it seems like it will be comfortable to run and play in. Ains helps choose outfits, which means he cares about them too. The little one will love this dress too. It has bows. Asher wondered what kind of hill of first love this was. Whatever the case, it was. A very scary store, too pretentious. It's so bright here that he's shocked. He heard the servants talking about the Rhinesvines bringing the Govart children with them. They didn't understand what was going on, and couldn't believe the rumors were true. There's always a lot of gossip in places like this. Duke Rhinesvine and his wife want to make the children their heirs, which means they cannot afford to make a mistake in the eyes of their mistress. But why is this? The Earl of Thine recently died, and they say this is all the Duchess is doing. Asher thought this was going too far, so he walked up to the guys and remarked that they seemed to be discussing some very interesting things. They started asking him who he was, since only workers were allowed here. He'd better get out of here quickly. If he tells anyone what he heard, it could end badly for him. They shouted at Asher that he better keep his mouth shut and not tell anyone anything. The gentleman noted that it seemed that the two of them knew who he was. He'll tell the same thing to both of them. Meanwhile, the children were trying on new clothes. Ains turned to his wife and said that she wore the same piece of jewelry every day. He tells me he doesn't like it. He just wanted to give her an even more beautiful one. Reef was absolutely delighted when she saw this beauty. She suggested that Merhin take off her bracelet for a moment and put on this one. She thought it would suit her very well. Ains helped her put on the bracelet and told her that it had Asher's protective spell cast on it. Even though he is not magical to me, there is still magic in him. The lady was very grateful. She said that she looked absolutely stunning and that it suited her very well. Merhin asked if she was speaking honestly, and the little girl happily said that she was. Merhin looks like a princess and shines like a star. The lady also decided to ask me not for a boy. Joseph smiled and also said it was very beautiful. Therefore, the lady was very grateful to him. After that, they said goodbye. They will send the outfits to their mansion as soon as they are ready. Merhin said they would wait. Asher also approached them, and the servants became very frightened. You have already heard the servant say that he refused to return until he saw his master and mistress. Merhin decided to approach and ask what was going on. The imperial family sent an envoy. Merhin was surprised when she heard about this, and in the meantime, a man had already approached them and greeted the Duke and Duchess of Rhinesvine. The ambassador reported that he had been sent by the second prince, Marcel Dion Irsilla. Ains remembered who the second prince of the empire was. Harcel Dion Irsilla. The young lady and her brother were tired, so the lady said that they could go to bed. The gentleman asked if the prince had said anything in his message. He wrote that he was definitely expecting an answer and wanted them to read the letter together. They want the Govart children to live comfortably in this cage. After all, Ains was horrified when he read this. Merhin wondered if he could wait a little longer, and the ambassador said that he could. Ains said this information couldn't have leaked. You can count on one hand the number of people who know they want to become the children's guardians. The imperial family had clearly done their best here, so he decided that he would sort this out completely. Merchant told him everything was fine, and there was no need to worry. She suggested he calmly read the letter again. She again remembered how her father said that for him, they were nobodies and the same people as beggars on the street. Just as she asked if they could make the imperial family their enemies. She has too many doubts, but she is sure of one thing. They are obliged to protect the children. The little ones were very happy when they looked out the window. Merchant was glad that they liked it. The children had never been to a palace before, so they were very happy. Merhin felt a little upset when she remembered that the letter had said for security purposes that only the commander of the knights is allowed to be taken as an escort. Also, if they want the guardianship process to go smoothly, they must take these children into the palace. Ains approached her and said that the imperial family had promised to provide security. He also said he forbade her from leaving Arita's side. The lady agreed, since the children needed to be protected first and foremost. It's okay, they're nothing to worry about. Ainz was shocked by her answer. They arrived, and the lady asked the Josefa how to behave in the palace. The boy replied that he should hold her hand and not let go. They also asked Reef what else they shouldn't do. The little one said they shouldn't use magic without reason, because there were a lot of bad people in the palace. Merhen noted that everything was correct, and they both remembered everything well. The man greeted the dukes and said that they had been expecting them so they could pass through. The man said that His Highness Prince Harsel would like to have a little chat with them, so he takes them to his reception room, but the prince ordered him to take only the duke to him. Ainz asked if this meant that he wanted to see only him and no one else. Merhen told Ainz to go. He shouldn't worry because she'd be with the children and they'd be able to get to them easily. Besides, Sir Rian is here too. Sir said he would accompany the three of them. Ainz agreed and said he'd be back soon. The little girl saw a portrait there and said it was Merchen. Well, her brother said that it wasn't Merhen, because the person in that portrait is Empress Idia. The little girl said that this woman looked very much like Merhen. The lady noticed that in the portrait, the lady was wearing the same bracelet as she had. The man noted that it was immediately obvious that they were from the same family. The servant behind him bowed. His Highness had arrived. The prince said he could sit, as he would be personally accompanying them. It was the prince, and their first meeting. The man introduced himself as Harsel Dion Irsilla. He was very pleased to meet the Duchess. Now the lady knew what Irsilla's second prince Harsel looked like. Well, then it's unclear where Ainz went. That's why even the knight tensed up. The lady greeted the second son of the empire. He noted that this portrait was only in the imperial palace. No reproductions had been made, so you can't confuse her with anyone else. The children are quite smart since they realized that it wasn't her. Merhen told His Highness that she would like the children to see the history of the Irsilla Empire with their own eyes. She was sure that he didn't mind, and the gentleman said that of course not. Harsel told Kasim to show the young mistress and master the imperial palace. The lady asked Sir Rian to look after the children, but he tried to tell her something. Merhen told the children not to move away, and not to let go of her hands and not to misbehave. If something happened to the Duchess while he was gone, he would not be able to look the gentleman in the eye. The prince noticed that she took good care of them, as stepmothers often abuse their children. He's evil. The man in front of her can be described in one word. He started saying that the emperor said the conversation with the duke would be long, and so he asked him to meet the lady. He also asked for forgiveness for not being able to greet them from the very beginning. Merhen asked His Highness to tell him honestly how he knew that they were going to adopt these children. Harsel noted that there have been a lot of rumors about this in high society for some time now after the children left with Ainzis. The aristocrats cannot believe that Duke Rheinswein really wants to adopt children, and somehow a trial concerning Count Thine has suddenly begun, so he decided to verify its veracity or falsity. Moreover, the Duke had left traces when he searched for information in the imperial archives. They followed these tracks to the two of them. The lady didn't understand what kind of tracks they were talking about. Count Thine said she was like a flower. A flower you just want to put in a vase to adorn your room, and he called his daughter the reincarnation of Empress Edia. And he certainly didn't expect that. You have to look hard to find a man as impudent as the Count. However, now that they had met, he understood him. He understood why the Count was so trembling with excitement because of these rumors. In the end, they decided to adopt them, but he decided to ask how they would be able to hug these children as if they were their own. Reef shouted to Merhen that they had arrived, and her name was telling her that they had been told to be quiet. The lady was delighted to see the children. The gentleman couldn't understand why, and considered it obvious. The children told her that the palace was simply magnificent, and they walked around it all. Merhen didn't understand what was wrong with her, holding her younger brother and sister in warm embraces. A servant informed His Highness that the Duke's carriage had left the palace. The master told Kasim that he had done a good job. He also asked about the children. He didn't notice anything special. It seems they don't have the treasures of Eskaya. In the gallery, where the imperial family's relics were on display, the young gentleman reacted strangely to one item. It seemed that most of the relics were of no interest to him, but for some reason, he could not move away from the portrait of Empress Edia. He has a keen eye on the child, that's why they have problems. Harsel also asked about the gift for the Duchess, and the servant reported that it was already ready. He asked the servant to bring it to her at dawn so that she would understand its meaning. Reef asked Merhin if their mom and dad would be sad to see this if she and her brother cried. Merhin said that very much so, but they had to promise her something. If they feel sad, they shouldn't keep it to themselves and can cry. If they hide their sadness in the depths of their hearts, their parents will feel even sadder. So they didn't have to hold back. After that, the children immediately rushed into her arms. Ainz hasn't arrived yet. Asher is in a similar situation. So the servant asked the madam what she would do. The lady said they would go first. Joseph asked where Ainz was. The lady said that he was probably busy at the moment, so he would be late and they would go without him. If she is seen on trial with the children, but without Ainz, you who love to make a fuss will start spreading rumors. Well, the lady decided they could say whatever they wanted. Fading away, she realized that the emperor had asked for this gift to be given to her. She told me to give it right before the memorial service. This was unexpected for Merchant. The emperor was so upset that he couldn't even greet her. So he gave her Empress Edia's bracelet. She found it odd. The bracelet she wears all the time looks exactly like the empress's. The emperor could not have given her such a bracelet, which means that the second prince did it. Reef noticed Ainz. The lady remarked that she was surprised he had arrived before them. Ainz said things were easier than he thought, so he suggested they go. The gentleman told the children that they should pay attention to someone because they were the children of the Howarth family, and from now on they would bear the surname Reinswein. They don't need to worry about what others think. Well, they were sad anyway. There's nothing more painful than losing a loved one. Today they gather here to remember what their loved ones leave behind. Joseph and Reef wept before the graves. They gathered to remember how much they loved them and the love they gave in return. Merhin ran to the children and hugged them. The memory will remain in their hearts forever. The lady was glad that the children calmed down quickly. Her husband noticed that she was wearing a different bracelet than the one he had given her. The lady said that it was a gift from the emperor, and it looked exactly like the bracelet she usually wore. Ainz shared when she heard it was a gift from the emperor. In fact, it was the prince who gave it to me, but he was pretending to be the emperor. When Asher returns, she wants to tell him to ask him about this bracelet. Ainz was surprised that he couldn't answer that question. The lady asked him again what he meant. Merhin said that only a magician could answer this question. Her husband understood her, and afterward, they decided to move on. Suddenly, the woman decided to look at the children and was shocked when she saw what was happening there. The lady called the children to her. She announced that it was time to return, so they should get into the carriage. Reef said her mother didn't like these flowers. Merhin asked what flowers they were talking about. The little girl was talking about the flower they gave her mom and dad. Joseph said the flower was called a chrysanthemum. Reef said she didn't know, and in any case, her mother didn't like them. She asked Merchant and Ainz if they would bring them more flowers because next time, she wanted to get different ones. Ainz said that if they wanted, they could stop by the flower shop right now. The children were absolutely delighted and said that they wanted to give their mother a cineraria. Reef was thinking about what other flowers she could give her mother, and the lady felt something strange. Reef wanted to buy red and rainbow ones. Joseph told her that rainbow colors don't exist. Ainz told his wife to come down and stood there with an umbrella. She remembered something. She saw Merhin screaming for her child to be returned to her. Merhin turned to him and said that she wondered where their child was now. Merhin began screaming hysterically, asking questions about where her child was. Hans grabbed her hand, confused. The woman begged him to let her go. Asher noted that Lady had fallen asleep and was very tired, so there was no need to worry because when she woke up, she would be fine. Ainz was calm and also decided to ask what it was. The mage remarked that it was black magic, and a very ancient one at that. The Duke remembered it was a gift from the Emperor and asked if he could do anything with it. Asher said he couldn't, but Ainz can. He must strike the Duchess in the heart with his Sirius. Ainz asked if he was in his right mind. The mage said that unfortunately he was. The black magic cast on the Duchess will continue to destroy her from within. Even when Merhin wakes up, he will not be able to resist for long, and under the influence of magic, he will lose the rest of his sanity. She was trying to find her lost baby after all. He doesn't know how the feeling of loss will manifest itself later. This could endanger the young master and mistress. He asked that Ainz first change into more comfortable clothes. Duchess Avenue for a few more hours. This day was like any other. It truly was a very ordinary day. Asher said he would try to cover up the trace left on the Marcus. Well, he wasn't sure he should hide the truth from her. He thought it would be better to tell her. Asher asked the gentleman to choose wisely. And when the lady woke up, he was already sitting next to her. The lady didn't understand why he was there. Ines told her she was overtired, and the lady didn't understand what he was talking about. The doctor said that she fainted from overwork. She said that she often felt dizzy. The lady said she wasn't sure about that. Someone went into the room and asked the lady if she was asleep. These were children who were very happy when they saw that she was not sleeping. Joseph was glad that she was no longer sick, and the little girl asked if everything was okay. Merhin told them she was feeling well and was grateful for their concern. Ines asked Asher if he wanted to be back, what choice he would make. He wanted his wife to be happy, just like she was now. Reef decided to ask when they would become Rhinesvines. Merchant said they should discuss everything with their grandfather first. As soon as he gives his permission, they will receive the same from the emperor. More precisely from the palace. The children were shocked that permission should come from that terrible yet beautiful place. There would be a banquet there in 3 days, and she would ask the emperor for an audience. Joseph said that then Reef and Merchant would become one family. Merhin said that when they become one family, then they will be together. The lady had a memory of crying for her child, and suddenly the little one said, "My poor child." The lady was very surprised. Family, who are they to become her family? She couldn't even hold her child's hand once. So Merhin doesn't understand who they are to become her children. Who are they to become her family? The lady said that once they become one family, she will be able to protect them. Merhin really wanted all of this to get out of her head because her name is not Merhin. Merhin will protect them, will protect her brother and sister at any cost. The children really like their estate, and he is glad that there are many good people there. The lady said it still couldn't compare to his house. The gentleman said there was no one to look after the children, and they are unlikely to be pleased when an old man like him hugs them. The Duchess was a little upset, and the gentleman was irritated to say that in fact, he had expected this to happen sooner or later, especially after entrusting the children's care to Ines. Maybe he wanted it to happen, because he was too old to protect them. He apologized for burdening them so much. Merhin said that Reef and Joseph were not a burden, or an unbearable burden for them. The lady wants to do everything so that the children grow up in safety, so that they follow their own path, so they ask the gentleman not to feel guilty. The Marquis burst into tears and said that he was so grateful that he could not even find words. Now, if they get permission from the imperial family, she will finally be able to hug her brother and sister, who will have the same surname as her. Even if not truly, they would become one family. Reef asked her brother what he wanted to do first when they returned to the Rhinesvine mansion. Joseph wanted to write a letter to his grandfather. The little girl decided that she would write one too, and said that she wanted to write the letter beautifully and in ink. Ines said that if that was the case, she could have his ink. Joseph asked if he objected to the golden ink they'd seen before, and remarked that it was too shiny. The boy turned to Merhin and looked back. He didn't understand why she wasn't coming in. He pointed out that when the sun set, it would be cold, and if she also wanted to see her grandfather, she should write a letter with them. Well, she pushed the boy's hand away and pushed him. Ines quickly told the children to go into the house without them. He ran to his wife and asked what was wrong. Merhin said she needed to find her child. He said it was already very late, and she could do it tomorrow at dawn. The children didn't even know what to do. Reef asked her brother if Lion was okay, and he told her not to worry. Asher said she was having some problems, and if they kept it in the dance, she'd be fine. Reef hoped she'd be okay. Joseph had said she would be, and that Ines and Asher would take care of her. Reef said they would probably be okay too. The Imperial Palace, the ballroom. They came with the whole family. The gentleman was pleased to meet the Duke and Duchess of Rhinesvane. This man's name is Cain Altrin. He is honored to meet them. The gentleman remarked that he was also pleased to meet him. Ishiftron also introduced herself. She too was honored to meet them. It seemed the children would like to play with their children. The woman remarked that it would only be an honor for her. I was very happy to meet them like this, so I offered to take them to their destination. The Duchess said they didn't mind at all. Suddenly, Ines turned to his wife and asked how she was feeling. He noted that she shouldn't go anywhere because she wasn't feeling well, and there were too many people here, so she should rest. Merhan said she was fine, and asked me if the doctor she went to for regular checkups had given his consent that she was healthy enough. The gentleman noted that this was all true, but she could suddenly lose consciousness. She'll be back soon, so he shouldn't worry. Ines was worried anyway. The lady said that she had heard about this and noted that the Duchess had really made an excellent decision. The other children thought the Govart children were obedient. Merchant confirmed this. The lady noted that they are also very cheerful, active, and healthy, and they cannot even imagine how much they look like angels. The ladies believed that it was not so easy to accept other people's children, even if they were the children of close friends. They thought we were offended there, because she had not yet had time to give birth to her own heir. But the Duke had already brought in other people's children. The woman hit her, and the girl didn't understand why she had suddenly hit her. The woman asked where her upbringing was, and how she could say such a thing right in front of the Duchess. She was staring at him for a moment, because she had to apologize immediately. The girl immediately apologized and said she had made a mistake. Merhan said that it was okay, and that they really didn't have a child yet. The woman asked the other lady to apologize as well, and she immediately said that she was very sorry. It was reported that His Highness the Second Prince had arrived. He immediately approached the table with the Duchess and asked if it was comfortable to eat there. Merhan confirmed this and said that she was very honored to welcome him. Harsel remarked that she seemed to like the Emperor's gift. Since the day she first lost consciousness, she had not seen Harsel's bracelet. Ains told her that the children did not leave her side, and they held her hand and cried all the time. But soon they got tired. On her wrist now is another silver one, just me, which looks the same as the one the prince gave her. If Harsel noticed that it was the wrong bracelet, then he clearly did something to the bracelet before giving it to her. The lady remarked that she, of course, couldn't help but wear it to the banquet. A gift for His Majesty the Emperor. It appears His Majesty will not be attending today's banquet. Princip noted that his father is not particularly fond of such flamboyant events. Whatever news they expect from the Emperor will convey through his valet. In the meantime, the prince decided to ask the Duchess if she would give him one dance. Ains appeared in front of her at that very second and asked for forgiveness. He informed His Highness that his wife had already promised him the first dance. The prince laughed, because without realizing it, he had almost disturbed the two of them. The Duke apologized again, but Harsel thought it was nothing serious, and hoped they would have fun at the banquet. Merhan told her husband that everyone was looking at them, and her husband immediately understood what she was getting at. After that, they held hands and began to dance. Suddenly, the lady heard someone calling her. It was Reef and her little brother. The lady smiled at her and said that she would have to stay with the children during the next dance. She plans to invite a dance teacher to the estate very soon, but it is unclear whether the children will want to take dancing lessons. If they enjoy dancing with her, they will definitely want to learn to move with the same grace. The clock struck 12:30, and Merhan immediately revealed herself. She said it was her body. Ains grabbed his wife in his arms and asked if she was okay. Merhan asked Ains's mind. Leon remembered that he also held her hand then. The gentleman had no idea what she was talking about. Merhan didn't understand why he hadn't rejected her that day. They first met at Count Brezet's mansion, discussing a marriage between her and his son. He had a penchant for stealing, but his father didn't care. That's where they first met. Well, he won't remember this. The lady stood up and started to leave. She wanted to order this to stop. Ains ran after her and tried to stop her. The lady, however, didn't wait for an answer from him. A collapse began in the palace, and the man immediately rushed after his wife. He saw her kneeling and asked if she was okay. Merhan asked him what had happened. She started screaming and calling for Reef and Joseph. Her husband shouted that it was too dangerous, but Merchant screamed for Eins Reinswein to let her go, because there were children there. The Duke shouted that Asher was doing it now. He asked if she remembered how he had promised the Countess to find her child. Asher is busy with this now. Merhan asked if he wanted to tell her that Ridienne is currently in the Imperial Palace. The Duke said it was all true. Eventually, the children ran up to Merchant. The lady was overjoyed. Reef was so scared then, but the lady said everything was fine now and asked the children if they were hurt. Joseph said no. Grandfather and Poe were looking after them. The servant told the ladies and gentlemen where to go for evacuation. The corridor is wide, so they should not rush, and they should also be careful. They did not understand why the ceiling collapsed, and thought it was an accident. It looks like even the prince who was supposed to calm people down ran out of here, and it seems like everything is quite serious. This could not have happened together, where there are so many magical stones. If it were not so, the prince would not have left here in such a hurry. Merhin had no idea what Asher had done there. His Majesty had asked for the Duke to be brought to him, and he wanted to see them both. The lady greeted the great sky of the empire. The gentleman remarked that it had been a long time since he had seen Duke Rhinsfane. This is his first personal meeting with the Duchess, and he apologizes for the delay in their acquaintance. Merhin told His Majesty that they had already met him through his servants. It's a great honor for her to meet him. The Emperor heard they want to take the Govart children under their wing. If there are no objections from the Govart family, then he has no reason to refuse them in this matter. He allows him to establish the children of the great family of the Ursula Empire, the Govart family. Merhin was grateful to His Majesty for his permission. The man said it was, after all, for the sake of the future and the empire. Because the Rhinsfine family is the shield of the Ursula Empire in the north. As emperor, he cannot ignore their borders. If that was all, then it was time for them to go back, because he assumed their children were waiting for them. The lady confirmed this and wished him a pleasant stay. As they were leaving, he addressed the Duchess. The lady turned to him. The emperor asked if she had received the gift he had given her. Merhin was surprised, but confirmed it, and said that she liked him very much. The gentleman was glad to hear this. The lady remarked that the emperor seemed to be feeling unwell. Ainz himself noticed that he seemed to be feeling worse than during their last meeting. Merhin saw that the children were sleeping. Asher said that the young mistress and master had fallen asleep. The Duke immediately pointed his sword at him. The man tried to say that he was Asher. Ainz said that he knew that, because of him, Merhin almost died under the rubble. Merhin stood in front of him and decided to cover Asher. She told her husband that she was fine. The Duke asked Asher Turk if he had promised to wait for them at the mansion after the commotion. Asher said that a certain situation had arisen here as well. Prince Harsel had hastily dispatched his man to Count Tyne's estate, all to find the missing Ridienne. Well, they needn't worry, because he transported Lady Rinia and the young master to safety. There is another problem. It is unknown when their disappearance will be noticed, so he wanted to warn them that he needs to go somewhere else, and for now they should take care of themselves. Rinia said that Ainz took her son, or rather, it was someone who pretended to be Ainz. However, the boy was in the palace all the time, and Harsel knows of your existence. The situation is too strange to be dismissed as a simple coincidence, and besides, it seems he has some connection with these magical stones. Besides, the young master has magical abilities, and their children too. If others find out about this, everything will be bad. Ainz understood him and asked him to be careful. Asher told the master not to leave the Duchess unattended after what had happened. In that case, he'll go. The master and mistress asked him to take care of himself. Now it's time for them to leave too. The children are very tired, and by the way, it seems she asked something in the banquet hall, but she doesn't remember what exactly. This concerned their first meeting. According to her, the son of Count Brezit is acceptable as a human being. The lady was in tears, and suddenly a man approached her and asked if she was okay. She saw Duke Rhinsfine standing before her. He asked his son to escort the lady. He'll deal with the young master of Brezit himself. Ainz asked the lady if she was okay. Merhin said she was fine, young sir. She was in pain because she was covered in bruises. Blin said that she can only cry if she wants to. When the lady burst into tears, Ainz asked if this answer would be enough for her. It's different from the first meeting she remembers. In her memories, the first meeting was different. He, kissing him, uttered a strange name. However, this memory was revealed to her too late, and for some reason, her feelings are so confused. She is now possessed by Merhin, and is probably starting to gradually disappear. Ainz and the doctor, they all hide her illness from her. It's their first day with the Rhinsfane name. They look happy. Asher should have returned to the estate earlier. They hadn't been there in a while. Security needed to be beefed up. Before they set off on their return journey, he would like to give gifts to Serena and John. He talks about the letters the children wrote them. She came to him very sadly and asked him to burn them. Well, he couldn't do it, and he would never have done it. The lady asked him for forgiveness. Ainz didn't quite understand why she was apologizing. She tried to explain, but the master insisted she had nothing to apologize for. Mersin read that she shouldn't have asked for this, and that the children shouldn't have written these letters. and they were supposed to send their message from those who don't exist. Therefore, the gentleman believes she doesn't need to apologize. She decided to lie to the children one last time. She was talking about the answer they would get from Serena and John. They will say that if they keep their love for mom and dad, then one day they will get an answer from them. There had to be a reason why he'd lied to her. She decided to trust the decision Ains had made for her. Ains handed Reef and Joseph the letters. She asked them, trying to get them to pass them on to their parents. The children thought that they would not be able to read it, but the gentleman said that this was not true, and the letter would be read because their parents could come to them in their dreams, and they would thank them for it. They also said that they absolutely must obey Ains. The little girl asked if this was really true. Of course this is true. So the baby was told by mom and dad that they would wait for their answer. She also wants to convey something to them. She's grateful for everything. So she says goodbye to her main characters. The lady noticed that everything was covered in snow. Ains thought it bothered her, but the lady said it didn't bother her at all. It's such a blessing that no one is chasing them like last time. She wondered if they had lost such interest in the children when they realized they didn't have Eskaya's treasure, or perhaps because they've lost something more important. Not knowing the second princess's purpose haunts her. The gentleman said that everything would be fine, and no matter what they were, nothing terrible would happen. Merhan may be sure of this because she has him and Asher. The knight opened the carriage doors and informed the lady and gentleman that the snowfall had become heavier and that the horses were having a hard time because of it. It was still a long way to Baron Eston's residence, where they planned to spend the night, and he thought they should find an inn in a nearby village as soon as possible. After this, the knight asked what they would order them to do. They decided to stop there after all. The owners asked for forgiveness, because this is all they can provide them, since initially only the second floor of this house was used as a hotel. Merhan told them to stop because they should be the ones apologizing to them for the unexpected visit. The knights can stay in the room next door. They have little space, but they hope that they will spend this night in comfort. Ains told Zhenya he had something for her. She asked what it was. The Duke replied that the butler had given it to him before leaving. He said he should give her a gun for self-defense. Then he recalled all the moments when she was on the brink of death. The lady was very grateful to him for such a gift. Ains read that there was nothing to be grateful for. He also apologized for not giving her this gift sooner. Meanwhile, the lady put the children to bed. Merhan knelt down and turned to God, and said that if he was coming, then she asked him to fulfill her wish. She feels sad because she was unable to bear a healthy baby, and her guilt is deep. She curses him for daring to fill the void left by her loss with these children. If God exists, then she asks him for salvation and asks him to pull her out of this terrible place. The voice asked her if this was her wish, and if so, he could turn back time. She should open the window. She should at least have given him a name, so that the heavens could speak to him with warmth. The lady apologized to the child. Meanwhile, Ains told the knight that his wife was constantly worried about the children and asked him to take care of them. The commander approached them and remarked that it was great, of course, that he was full of energy, but he shouldn't be so frivolous. Otherwise, he doesn't trust him. Azet couldn't believe he was truly like that. Another knight noted that if you fixate on something, your field of vision inevitably narrows. The gentleman thought that they were similar in this regard, but they had plenty of skills, so he had confidence in them. In the corridor, he met his wife and saw that she was holding a knife in her hands. He grabbed her hand and asked where she was going. Merchant asked Ains Reinswein to let her go. The gentleman asked her to calm down and return to her room. The woman did not understand why she should obey him. She wanted to stab him with a knife and screamed, asking why she had to return to that lonely place. The knights wanted to run up to the master, but he ordered them not to approach. He took his wife's hands. Merhan said she wanted to protect her child. The master apologized to her for this. If these words always ended, no tragedies would happen in the world. After this, the lady fainted, and the man grabbed her. It was necessary to do this quickly, because what was happening did not require delay, and it was necessary to call a doctor immediately. The snowstorm was in full swing. All the roads were snowed in, so they informed the Duke that they would not be able to call a doctor. One can only hope that the snow will stop soon. The Duke was very grateful. He didn't understand at all what he should do, because there had to be another way out. Suddenly, the lady woke up and didn't understand what was happening. The Duke was glad she was awake. Merhan immediately noticed his wound and was simply horrified. She didn't want to believe she had done it. The girl immediately rushed to him and asked for forgiveness, because it was because of her that he was injured. The gentleman said that it was he who should apologize and that he was truly sorry. They needed to treat the wound. The gentleman said he was fine, so she shouldn't worry, but the lady said she was not fine at all. Manhwa begged him to tell her what was going on. He tried to wriggle out of it, but the lady begged him very hard. She wounded him with the weapon he'd given her for protection. If it hadn't been for him, the children would have suffered too. So she begs him to tell her about it. She's under a curse, black magic. The saints emerge. The only solution is the sword of Sirius asked what she meant by that. He himself knows that the only way to get rid of the curse is to pierce her heart, because the sword was created to fight evil. Ain screamed that he wouldn't do it, and was ready for her to hurt him again. She was simply in shock, so he asked her not to even think about it. Reef and Joseph are the meaning of her life, and he must understand her. Serena and John. Their children are invisible, and their love is hidden. Everything connected with her name is dear to him. The Duke shouted that she had to live, and no matter what happened to him, he would find another way. So he begged her to take care of herself. He even begged and pleaded with her. After that, she realized the full danger. It is unknown when she will lose her mind again, and what she will be able to do with the children. Asher came to her and asked the Duchess what she thought. Manhwa was surprised when she saw him. The master told her not to worry. Rhinesvain's greatest mage would warm everyone with his warmth, but she must know that a lot of time has passed since their last meeting, and her face is worried again. Tell her she noted that he knows that she was cursed with black magic, so she decided to ask if there was a way to lift the curse without using the sword. Yes, the master denied it. She's right, only Askea's treasure will free her from the curse. Mere death doesn't remove the ancient magic. The destruction of the soul of the damned is required. In the event of physical death, the curse is transferred to those close to him. For example, on a husband or a knight who always protects her, even on innocent children. Then there's only one option left. Get your hands on the Sirius sword. But how to do that, and how to convince the Duke is completely unclear. Asher said that he would work for her and not for Ainz, because he wanted her to be happy. She didn't understand what happiness he desired, and told him to get the Sirius sword. She hoped they would all be happy. It's time for the children to have dinner, so they need to get up. Reef said she slept well, but the boy couldn't sleep anymore. They were delighted to see Asher. They didn't ask him when he'd arrived. Azette couldn't understand how he'd managed to get through that blizzard. The man said there was nothing Rhinesvain's greatest mage couldn't do. The lady offered the children dinner. Manhwa wondered if Ainz would be able to take care of the children alone. Can he be strict with them, with the children who laugh so brightly from running around? Or I'll just let them do whatever they want. After all, there'll be no one to reproach him or talk to him. Joseph turned to Manhwa and told her that his little sister had left the carrots and wasn't eating them. Reef said she'd eaten hers, but the boy said she was lying. The mistress told her not to be picky. Even though she has made her decision, she does not want to abandon her younger brother and sister. Asher noted that he was quite badly injured. Ainz said that wasn't the main issue. He was interested in whether they'd found a solution. The magician asked him what he thought his answer would be. The master really wanted him to say yes. Asher hid Countess Tyne and her son together, untouched by the second son's gaze. He asked if the gentleman remembered the kingdom of Awe. It was a small holy kingdom that had been destroyed more than 20 years ago. The gentleman said that his answer remains the same. There is no other way except the sword of Sirius. Then he decided to find him and asked Asher to make sure that the lady was not harmed. After this, the magician offered him something to eat because the Duchess was already waiting for them. The little girl hoped that the snow would stop tomorrow. The gentleman asked her why she wanted this so much. It's all because Reef wants to play like he did when the first snow fell in Rhinesvain. The lady asked what would happen if she caught a cold, because she would have to take this bitter medicine again, like last time. Reef believed Asher could do it. The mage asked if she was really talking about him. He asked who he was, and Joseph immediately said that he was the greatest mage in Rhinesvain. There is nothing that the greatest magician of Rhinesvain cannot do. The gentleman thought it was a lie. Reef said she would sleep with Manhwa tonight. The boy remarked that if the bed were bigger, they could all sleep together. Asher told the master that he needed to rest because he was wounded, and he would guard the three of them. Ainz asked if he could really handle it alone. Asher noted that the gentleman had asked him to protect the Duchess. And with his body injured, it is impossible to stop the Duchess who is consumed by black magic. Ainz shouted that she would be fine. She wouldn't be consumed by black magic. Even if that happens, he can stop her. Asher just chuckled. The gentleman did not understand what kind of expression this was, and the magician noted that there was nothing special, and he could return to his wife. After this, he wished the gentleman good night. He approached the boy and asked what secret conversation their little gentleman wanted with him. Joseph wanted to ask about Merchant, because he thought she was in a lot of pain and suffering. The magician asked him why he thought so. The boy burst into tears and said he had seen everything. Merhin cried a lot and was very angry. Asher said that the Eye of Wisdom had chosen him, so he didn't understand why it couldn't hear him. He prayed several times that Merhin would not suffer, but there was no answer. After this, Asher hugged the young gentleman to support him somehow. The gentleman was grateful to them, because thanks to them, they got through the heavy snowfall. He asked Asher to check which route the carriage would take. Reef said that when they returned, she would like to have a snowball fight and also build a snowman. The lady didn't mind at all. Joseph asked Merhin if she knew that if you climbed the hill, there was a spot from which you could see all of Rheinsweine. He suggested that when spring came, he would go there. The lady said that they would definitely go when it got warmer. She promised. Asher scouted the route. The main road was in the shade, so the snow hadn't melted yet, but the northwest road was sunny, though it was quite dangerous. The commander noted that the northwest road actually led through an abandoned forest. This could be more dangerous than they thought. The gentleman noted that if it snowed again, they might be isolated for a long time and would be better off speeding up. Ainz informed his wife that there was a chance that monsters would appear along the way, and he would be traveling with the knights. If anything was troubling her, she should tell Asher. He'll be with them in the carriage Asher in his place. For some reason, she feels a strange loneliness, even though this is just an ordinary conversation. Joseph asked Merchant if they had arrived yet, but the lady said they hadn't yet, and the horses were tired, so they stopped to rest. Reef said she wanted to go out and have a look around. The boy decided he wanted to too. The lady decided not to refuse them, and they went out. She noted that they said monsters might appear, but not even a shadow of them was visible. Asher said it seemed they were all afraid of Ainz and the knights. Reef told Ainz to look at the flower and suggested that he go show it to Merhin. Reef came up to her and told her to look at how the flower blossomed because she thought it was very beautiful. Merhin said it was very beautiful and he thought it was already spring with so much sunshine. Merhin decided to look up the name of this flower, and then strange memories came flooding back to her, so she asked them to go for a walk with Ainz. Reef said that Merhin would come too. The lady said that she would stay in the carriage she needed to think a little. She really wanted the little girl to take that arm back before she twisted it. Ainz asked her if everything was okay, and the lady asked him to take care of the children. The lady locked herself in her carriage. She realized how her life was falling apart, and she must die no matter what. The knight questioned what he had said, and was horrified that they had ultimately lost them. The servant tried to pursue them, but their tracks had vanished. Harsel was simply horrified because he didn't need an excuse, because he knew who this child was, and still let them escape. They had enormous magical power for the first time in 500 years. If the tablets of all knowledge fell into his hands, they would become a sacrifice, granting him the Eye of Wisdom to read it. The servant told His Highness that tomorrow the Count's house would be accused of treason, and they would be searched throughout the empire. The child's return is simply a matter of time. The prince asked what was happening to Rheinsweine, and whether the Duchess had shown any signs. The servant said that no, and that the Duchess was fine. Nothing unusual. Harsel believed that this couldn't be true. The bracelet should have driven her crazy long ago. He suggested adjusting the northern inspection schedule. The servant didn't quite understand what the master meant. Rheinsweine was left off the schedule due to the need to suppress monsters in the abandoned forest. Well, this time, he'll include her. Asher approached the lady and asked what she was thinking. Merchant apologized and said she hadn't heard him enter. The magician asked if she thought he would just open the doors. Whoever cast the spell on her must be feeling pretty good about themselves right now. The mage couldn't say for sure, but he could tell her something interesting. People who use dark magic, oddly enough, cannot feel their own magic. This means they don't know if their spell worked on the target, so they just have to continue acting as usual. The lady was simply horrified by this and said that she needed the Syria right now. Reef would come to her in the carriage and say that they were about to leave and that they should arrive in about a day. They would arrive before sunrise. The monsters hadn't appeared. This was a relief to Asher, though perhaps a misfortune. The lady asked again. The mage said that before they left the estate, he had inspected the abandoned forest, and that before subduing the monster, it was necessary to understand its habitat territory and behavior patterns. It was strange he couldn't find any traces of habitation, nor any monsters. This means that they all disappeared together, but the problem is that monsters do not have a collective mind, unless someone's commanding them. When they return to the estate, we need to be on our guard. The fact that the monsters suddenly disappeared from the forest is alarming. Don't delude yourself into thinking there were no problems at the estate while they were away. Well, she needn't worry, because she and the Duke will protect her. He was glad they had returned safely. The gentleman asked the butler to call a doctor, because he wants to examine the lady and the children after their long journey. Merhen asked her husband how he was, but the gentleman said that he was fine. However, he was also tired from the long journey. Ainz said he understood. Reef had already fallen asleep. The doctor remarked that she must have been too tired from the journey and noted that the young lady seemed healthy. Well, they need to make sure she's getting enough rest and not overexerting herself. Merchant asked her husband if the doctor could examine him too. So you noticed that he was wounded. It was a pretty serious wound. Fortunately, it is already completely healed. So, madame, there's no need to worry. Merhen was able to breathe a sigh of relief. Tomorrow, the commander burst into the room and called for the master. He was surprised that the lady was also there. He had an important message. Ainz asked what he meant. The monsters in the dead forest began to move. He was shocked, as it had been quiet when they left the estate. The knights had heard signs of several groups moving in formation during their patrol. The gentleman was shocked that they were moving in formation and asked where Asher was now. The magician hurriedly went into the dead forest. He said that he would check if the monsters had really started moving, and then he will return. They must remove the dark magic cast on his wife as soon as possible. He will take part in my hunt this year, no matter what news Asher brings. The butler informed the gentleman that a letter had arrived from the imperial family, and that he apologized for the disturbance. Ainz immediately grabbed the letter and began reading. After finishing it, he immediately asked when it had arrived. The butler reported that it had been delivered that morning by a carrier pigeon. This surprised the gentleman. They don't want to leave any traces. It was a letter from Orang Winter. For Rainsvine must be like a time of activity for animals. The emperor wants to express his gratitude to him for always protecting the empire from the monsters in the dead forest. So this time, the tour will end in Rainsvane. The emperor's will. Well, the emperor is too sick to even stand up, so maybe someone cast dark magic on the emperor. If this is true, it is likely that the dark magic cast on his wife was also his doing. The gentleman asked the butler to take care of this, as His Highness, the second prince, intends to end his northern tour here. Ainz said he would never draw his Sirius sword against Merhen. Even if he had to tear the second prince apart, he would find a way to remove this dark magic, and perhaps leading the second prince. That's a possibility. The commander asked the master if he should begin organizing the hunt. Ainz told them to do so. The knight believed that, in that case, the master would personally lead the hunt. Ainz said that he would lead this hunt because he had to do it himself. Reef was a little angry because she didn't even notice that she fell asleep. Her brother noted that she was such a sleepyhead. He noticed that the sun was already setting, and she had only just woken up. Reef had said she wasn't a sleepyhead. The lady had said, "What if their little one couldn't fall asleep at night?" The little girl was glad she wouldn't sleep, but Merhen told her that if she didn't sleep, she wouldn't grow up. She decided that she would sleep because she really could sleep. Asher asked the lady if she was there. The children were delighted to see him. He told the young master and madam that he would not be able to play with them now, so he asked for forgiveness because he needed to talk to the madam. Merhen asked Hannah if she could take the children to another room. The lady decided to inquire about the reason for such urgency. Asher asked if she remembered their conversation about the monsters disappearing in the dark forest. They returned and sprang into action. It turns out that the danger they foresaw will actually happen. It's difficult to confirm, but he and his master will go hunting, and there he will take the Duke's sword, Syria. The lady was very grateful to him. Usher asked the Duchess if she hated him. The lady didn't understand why she should. The greatest mage of Rhinesvine was working for her, and she was very grateful. Asher said that wasn't the issue. It was just the only solution he could come up with. Merchant told him she truly appreciated it. Ines was glad his darling was already awake, because he wanted to go out to her. The gentleman remarked that she had woken up quite early. The lady agreed with him and asked what had happened so early in the morning. Ines told her the children were nowhere to be seen. Merchant informed him they had simply gone to wash up. The gentleman begged and said that the second prince would visit the Rhinesvine estate. She was surprised. The lady asked if this was the same man who hunted Reef and Joseph. Ines confirmed this and said that there was no need to worry, since at this time, usually someone from the royal family goes north, and this is in order to prevent the aristocrats from plotting rebellion. Merchant was simply horrified because he had never visited Rhinesvane before. The gentleman turned to Merhen and said that he would make sure that he could not cause trouble. He'll use this as an opportunity and find a way, so she shouldn't worry. The second prince will only come to Rhinesvane after the monster extermination is complete, by which time she will have already plunged the sword of Syria into her heart. She must remain silent. They must distance themselves from each other. The knight informed the master that the blizzard, which they had thought would be severe, had significantly weakened, and thanks to this, the extermination would not be too difficult. Ines considered this a stroke of luck and was overjoyed. But whether the easing of the snow was truly beneficial for Asher remains unclear. Ines asked his wife why she was outside, since it was very cold here. She didn't want to tell him to look her in the eye, because she might get attached to him. She asked if he was sure he felt okay in those clothes. Because it'll be colder in the forest. The armor is uncomfortable, that's all, if it bothers her. He can change if she says so. The lady couldn't understand why he was acting so suddenly. Asher said that even if he were offered to cast spells, he would still be like this. This would greatly simplify his movement. He will come to his senses only after a good shake-up. Asher noted that the master had wrapped the mistress very warmly. And what would happen if she suffocated? The master began to think she was uncomfortable, but the mistress insisted everything was fine. The mage explained that everything was so sad, and it seemed he had no allies here. Then Reef will be on Asher's side and Joseph too, but first he will be on Merhen's side. Reef said that in that case she would also be on Merhen's side, then on Ines's side and then on Asher's. The man noted that in the end no one would be on his side. Reef remembered she had something for Ines Joseph, pointed out that they had made it themselves. The maid reported that the young lady and young gentleman embroidered this handkerchief with their own hands. Reef said it was a gift for knights setting out on long journeys. Joseph read about it in a book. The man was very grateful to them for such a gift. The children were also very happy. Asher inquired about him and the other knights. Reef explained what they had planned to do, but ran out of time. The owner was informed that it was time to leave, and so they quickly got ready. The children told Ines to take care of himself. Joseph added that he shouldn't get hurt. Asher promised to return soon. The lady didn't even know what to do. Ines, Asher, and all of Rhinesvine's knights have disappeared into the forest, but unfortunately, she is only waiting for one piece of news. The children told the lady to look, because a letter had arrived from Ines. The lady was surprised and did not even expect news after only 3 days. She became interested in what was written there, and the children were just waiting for her to read the letter. Ines wrote that he hoped they stayed warm. It was much colder in the forest than in the manor, but as he expected it wasn't too bad, so they needn't worry. However, he is worried about whether they obey her. He asked the kids to avoid dangerous actions and obey Merhen. Reef was surprised that that was all. Joseph had assumed there was more. The lady realized the most important part was missing. The words, "I love you," weren't there. After that, the lady delved back into her memories. Merhen noted that perhaps he thought she already knew what he loved. She also asked the maid if she was there and asked her to take the children outside. The mistress shouted at her to do it faster. Reef didn't understand why and assumed she was ill. The children's voices seemed to burst her eardrums, and she wants to silence them. Even Aines's sincere letter to me helps her, and she just prays that he will come back soon before she loses herself here. She didn't want to tell him to look her in the eye, because she might get attached to him. She asked if he was sure he felt okay in those clothes. Because it'll be colder in the forest. The armor is uncomfortable, that's all, if it bothers her. He can change if she says so. The lady couldn't understand why he was acting so suddenly. Asher said that even if he were offered to cast spells, he would still be like this. This would greatly simplify his movement. He will come to his senses only after a good shake-up. Asher noted that the master had wrapped the mistress very warmly. And what would happen if she suffocated? The master began to think she was uncomfortable, but the mistress insisted everything was fine. The mage explained that everything was so sad, and it seemed he had no allies here. Then Reef will be on Asher's side and Joseph too, but first he will be on Merhin's side. Reef said that in that case she would also be on Merhin's side, then on Ainz's side and then on Asher's. The man noted that in the end no one would be on his side. Reef remembered she had something for Ainz Joseph, pointed out that they had made it themselves. The maid reported that the young lady and young gentleman embroidered this handkerchief with their own hands. Reef said it was a gift for knights setting out on long journeys. Joseph read about it in a book. The man was very grateful to them for such a gift. The children were also very happy. Asher inquired about him and the other knights. Reef explained what they had planned to do, but ran out of time. The owner was informed that it was time to leave, and so they quickly got ready. The children told Ainz to take care of himself. Joseph added that he shouldn't get hurt. Asher promised to return soon. The lady didn't even know what to do. Ainz, Asher, and all of Rhinesvine's knights have disappeared into the forest, but unfortunately, she is only waiting for one piece of news. The children told the lady to look, because a letter had arrived from Ainz. The lady was surprised and did not even expect news after only 3 days. She became interested in what was written there, and the children were just waiting for her to read the letter. Ainz wrote that he hoped they stayed warm. It was much colder in the forest than in the manor, but as he expected it wasn't too bad, so they needn't worry. However, he is worried about whether they obey her. He asked the kids to avoid dangerous actions and obey Merhin. Reef was surprised that that was all Joseph had assumed there was more. The lady realized the most important part was missing. The words, "I love you," weren't there. After that, the lady delved back into her memories. Merhin noted that perhaps he thought she already knew what he loved. She also asked the maid if she was there and asked her to take the children outside. The mistress shouted at her to do it faster. Reef didn't understand why and assumed she was ill. The children's voices seemed to burst her eardrums, and she wants to silence them. Even Ainz's sincere letter to me helps her, and she just prays that he will come back soon before she loses herself.